That's an exception.
Good evening to everyone watching out there. Thank you for spending a part of your holiday break with us. Which part it is, I don't know. But for the last time in 2025, I'm Stephen Rabinowitz.
And for the last time in 2025, I'm Jay Kaplan. And honestly, if the weeks weren't delineated by holidays and prep and the 2 days we put aside for this show, I really would not know which day of the month it is.
And for the last time, I'm Anthony Strait and Jay, you're right. The holidays are kind of throwing me off from Thanksgiving to now. It's literally just been like a track meet, and I'm just like, you know what? Let's get this holidays over it. I'm waiting for the new year. Let's rock and roll.
All right, welcome to our 2025 on the Sports Lines year-end awards. So our holiday special will talk about the best and worst on both extremes of the year of our Lord 2025. From the choke jobs of all choke jobs to the superhuman feats we may never see again. We'll have it all tonight. Speaking of, let's start with our panel here with some opening thoughts about this year as we start every show for the year ends. Jay, I'm going to start it here with this simple sentence. 2025 was one of the craziest years in recent sports memory.
Yeah, and it's kind of rare that that happens in a non-international competition laden year. I mean, you
Yeah.
kind of expect, some crazy, athletic feats to happen in a year where we've got the World Cup, we've got an Olympics, which we're going to have in February. We didn't have any of those things. This year was kind of like an in-between year as far as international competitions giving us extra stuff to go wow over. But I mean, if you want a microcosm of how crazy this sports year has been, look no further than um, the end of the baseball season, specifically the playoffs in the World Series, and hands down, this has to be one of the weirdest, wackiest, craziest NFL seasons that I can remember in recent history.
Go
Yeah, you know
ahead.
what, Jay? I'll pick it back off you. Think about this: how this year started with the Kansas City Chiefs looking for another unprecedented Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl turned into a one-sided affair. Little did we know that that could have been to signal the end of the current Kansas City Chiefs we speak when we look at where this team is now. And we've also saw just how hard it is to be to we saw how hard it is to stay at the mountaintop. I mean, we saw it with the Chiefs, we saw it with the Boston Celtics in the playoffs
Hmm.
earlier this year. We saw it and we're seeing it now with the Philadelphia Eagles kind of stumbling along a bit, even though they have been able to right the ship as of late. But when you look at how hard it is to get to the top and to stay there,
Yeah.
um, I mean, it just takes a sheer amount of effort. I think sometimes, like I was saying, we tend to beat up on the Dodgers because of the spending habits, but what Dave Roberts and what that organization has done to at least stay a contender, but also that the whole month of October, just which is one of the most amazing amount of baseball I've watched from the division series on. The NBA playoffs were excited. We want to talk about obviously the Indiana Pacers and the Knicks kind of were trading miraculous comebacks until they met each other and both victimized each other in that series with miraculous comebacks. You saw the rise of a young team, the youngest team in basketball, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, with years of draft picks and careful planning coming to fruition in June, the first ever championship. Um, we saw a Stanley Cup Finals rematch, which is very rare,
Yeah.
and and we're just seeing, and also we saw the end of a TV era and the end of the NBA and TNT, which we all grew
Yeah.
up on. So
Can,
it's
can
been
can
a
we
year
take a
of
moment
old
and
and
can we
new.
take a moment to just, kind of recognize what the absence of the NBA from TNT. I mean, it's an absence. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely felt it. It was a staple Tuesday and Thursday nights for like pretty much all of our adult lives. And I will say this. I'm glad that they picked up and put down inside the NBA from TNT to ESPN. Only the logos changed. It's still in the same Atlanta studio. It's still the same cast of characters. But so far, I'm not happy with the way ESPN has underutilized them so far early in the basketball season. And I'll leave that at that because we'll probably get into it on another show.
Yeah, but I mean, they underutilized basketball, to be honest, in the beginning of the basketball season, but that's again for another show. I think you guys are absolutely correct when you look at everything that's happened this year. Even with the first time since 2008 that 4 1 seeds made the Final Four, and we had an amazing Final Four with Duke having a big blown lead to Houston and then a national championship for the ages. You look at college football, look at the run of Ohio State and what they've had and all of this stuff that we've had to see in college football. Indiana right now is the best team in the country and the #1 seed playing. Who knew that would happen? And then you mentioned everything with the World Series, one of the craziest World Series that we'll ever see in our lifetime. Stuff that you're never going to see again. And I can almost guarantee you're never going to see again in this era. And also just everything that has happened in New York sports this year, especially with the baseball teams and the promise they had coming into 2025, and unfortunately the way that they've ended. So everything is unique, but everything is unique for a reason. And that's what makes 2025 stand out.
Yes. And by the way, I'll throw in one more. How about the Four Nations face-off? And how good that tournament was.
Oh, yeah.
And
we'll see that again. We'll see that again in Milan Cortana in about 2 months with the Winter Olympics.
Indeed.
All right, I am definitely worried about the skating, the ice hockey situation. We'll talk about that in another show, but
we'll talk about that in another show. But it's time to begin with some awards, and it starts with Baby New Year, our award for Rookie of the Year. These new kids on the block are making their way to superstardom step by step, and it looks like they'll be hanging tough to stay there. Enough about early 90s boy bands. Look up NKOTB kids. That's what I just need to tell you right now. Here are the nominees. Nick Kurtz, first baseman, athletics. Yes, athletics on Oakland Athletics, and I'm not saying Sacramento Athletics. Sure, he played a bit in 2024, and he plays his home games at a goddamn minor league park, but 36 home runs, 4 in 1 game in July, and a unanimous AL Rookie of the Year makes you a shoo-in as a nominee here. Stephon Castle, point guard, San Antonio Spurs. Just 1 year after his teammate Victor Wembanyama wins NBA Rookie of the Year, the UConn alum does the same thing with almost 15 points per game, and he's already taken up his game a level higher to start the 2025 season. Matthew Schaefer, defenseman, New York Islanders. You rarely put a guy whose season started in October on this list, but with 24 points already, and the Islanders looking much stronger after getting this #1 pick, you could say more awards are coming for the 18-year-old.
Yeah, really?
Becker's,
Wow.
Paige Becker's guard, Dallas Wings. While, we knew Paige Buckets was going to be a force in the WNBA for almost 20 points per game and well-rounded year one for the dreadful worst team in the NBA, the Dallas Wings, makes us realize that even supernovas can exceed expectations. And the winner is Paige freaking Beckers. Jay, the star power continues with Mrs. Easy Azzy Fun in the WNBA.
I think that's the other way around. Since
it doesn't matter. It's whatever way it is. They're both.
I'm just saying,
they share the pants.
The way they rolled it out, AZ's phone case saying Paige Becker's girlfriend. I'm just saying.
They share the pants. So let's talk about that.
All right. Well, yeah, Caitlin Clark set the bar for WNBA rookies pretty fracking high with her freshman season in the W, especially coming off the senior season she had at Iowa. But Paige reminded folks that she can play ball a little bit. The #1 overall pick led the Wings in scoring, as you said, 19.2 a game, assists at 5.4, steals at 1.6. She also averaged almost 4 rebounds in 33 1/3 minutes. 33.3. She led the team in total of minutes, field goals, attempts, free throw attempts, assists, steals, and points. She was the only player who ranked in the top 10 in points, assists, and steals per game this season. She was the runaway Rookie of the Year winner, 70 of the 72 votes. She made the All-Star team, was Rookie of the Month 3 times, was first team All-Rookie and second team All-WNBA. Fastest rookie in league history to reach 500 points and 100 assists. Became just the 10th rookie in WNBA history to start in the All-Star game. She became the only rookie in WNBA history to average at least 19 points a game while shooting at least 47% from the floor. And the second player in league history, Candace Parker, was the first to average at least 19 points a game, 5 assists, and shoot 47% from the floor. Signature performance, August 20th against LA. put up 44 points, highest single game total by any player in the W this season. 17 of 21 shooting going. And with that, she became the first player in WNBA history to shoot at least 80% from the floor while scoring 40 or more points. Now, look, I give Nick Kurtz plenty of props. He had a great season, 36 homers, 86 RBI, a 1.002 OPS, and he had one of the greatest games ever in baseball history on July 25th in Houston. 6 for 6, a single, a double, 4 home runs, becoming the 20th player in MLB history to do that. 6 runs scored, 8 RBI, 19 total bases, making him the first player to finish a game with at least 6 hits, 6 runs, and 8 RBI. But considering the fact that in what pretty much amounts to a New York minute, WNBA rookies go from the NCAA tournament in March to playing in the W in May, the first page in the WNBA book of Beckers earned this award.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking off of what you said, Jay. And think about this: she's the second player ever to finish with 500 points, 150 assists, 100 rebounds, and 50 steals in a single season.
Mm,
Since the first player was Caitlin Clark the previous year, 2024. And you talked about that whip around from
yeah,
NCAA tournament to the WNBA. And we saw early on in Caitlin Clark's rookie season, she kind of struggled a little
it's
bit, kind of,
whiplash, man.
yeah, just kind of adjusting, just not having the time off in between. And to see Paige Beckers kind of not have that fall off from the start and just showing how much of a complete player she is. I mean, we forget that she's a really good defensive player as well. We got the amount of steals she racked up, but Paige Beckers is show. We saw this in UConn, obviously, and we kind of felt that the transition from her to the WNBA would be kind of
Mhm.
be seamless. But little did we know it would be this seamless to the point
Right?
where she's been so good. And then we've seen, I don't know if you follow social media as far as Team USA, their workouts a few weeks ago, and a lot of highlight reels are coming from Paige Becker. So she kind of became a kind of a standout in those workouts. But yeah, 44-point game, rookie of the month 3 times, unanimous, APR rookie team. Now Matthew Schaefer, look, if we were talking about a whole season right now, I would definitely have more to talk about. You talking about a defenseman who has 24 points already and 9 goals in just a short matter of time. And I talked about this in our group chat. Defensemen who can score goals lamp to lamp don't grow on trees. So
Nope.
when you have one that falls in your lap and let the honors are, and then a great position, humbly I have to admit that after they beat the Rangers this past weekend, yes, Caleb, I'm giving your team a shout out. Don't give me a big grief over it. But yes, right now Paige Beckers it's the best rookie without question. And I can't wait to see what she does in Arrival. Hopefully we have a WNBA season also to look forward to.
Hopefully.
Um, but yeah, if you don't want to see an indicator of what Paige Beckers is bringing to the table, and then you think about the next batch of young stars that's coming after her, oh man, women's basketball is going to be really fun for a long time. And
Oh,
of
yeah.
course, we're all fans of it. We all welcome it.
Absolutely.
And the funny thing is, when you actually look at it with all of these nominees, one thing that I found was interesting, and this is not a knock, with the exception of Matthew Schaefer. By the way, this team right now has 46 points with the Islanders about midway through the season, and they're in a playoff spot, something a lot of people did not expect in the first season post Lou Lamoriello. But Stefan Castle was part of a 34 and 48 team last year. Paige Beckers was part of a 10 and 34 team last year. And Nick Kurtz was part of a 70 and 92 team last year. So the nominees for this category show that you don't necessarily need the rest of the team to follow in your footsteps, apparently. All of them just transcend the team that they have. And it's actually kind of an accomplishment, really, with the talent that some have not had around them. But Spurs are a lot better this year. I'm sure Paige Beckers will be getting help in the near future whenever they play the WNBA. I cannot wait to see her in Unrivaled, by the way. That's going to be a little bit of a treat to see that actually begins next week.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, but Paige is a deserving winner of this award. I wouldn't say it's a bad year for nominees, but it's a different year for nominees. And I think when we look back at this season, I'm not going to dash, and this is not going to be the most memorable thing. I don't think it's going to be the first thing on the resume of 2025, but it's good to see that we have a lot of budding stars in the league because I think the talent in almost all of the leagues right now is high, and I think this definitely shows with the nominees that we have here. All right, it takes a lot to lead a team while dealing with petulant, whiny players on the court and dealing with petulant, whiny social media trolls off of it. But our nominees for head of the table, best coach slash manager of 2025, showed that these leaders did both of these things. Mike Vrabel, New England Patriots, about to score another touchdown on the New York Jets as you're listening to this. How the hell did the Tennessee Titans let him go? Why the hell did he not coach last year? Boston can't answer these questions, but they're going to say thank you as the Patriots secured the first playoff berth and division title of the post-Bill Belichick era. Bill who? Bill who?
Huh? Who that? Who are you talking about?
Kurt Cignetti, Indiana football. I Googled him. Here are the results. Leader of the only undefeated FBS team in 2025, Big Ten champion, first Rose Bowl in 58 years as CFP number 1 seed, and making the now second losingest college football program of all time a powerhouse. Mark Daigneault, Oklahoma City Thunder. GM Sam Presti built the blueprint. Mark executed it to a T, leading to the first ever title for the Seattle/OKC franchise. And Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco 49ers. The first thing you read about the San Francisco 49ers is blank is injured this week. The second thing you hear about Kyle Shanahan is that they overcome that and the Niners win anyway. San Francisco playoff bound again and 1 win away from being the 1 seed in the NFC and not having to lead San Francisco for the entire postseason. And the winner is, hey, it's Mike's kid, Kyle Shanahan. And Anthony, we just looked at it this past Sunday in a classic game, the greatest game of the year of the week, seemingly, that we've had in the NFL this year against the Chicago Bears. And what Kyle Shanahan has done with this team has just added to a very impressive legacy as a coach.
Yeah, you know what? I made the joke a few weeks ago on one of our last normal shows that the 49ers seem like the cut scene from Tecmo Super Bowl when the football players running out of the hospital and going straight to the stadium. It seems like that every week because how on earth did he get this team within one game of the 1 seed? By the way, they would not have to leave the Bay Area at all, including the Super Bowl, if they get the 1 seed.
Yes, sir.
And there's so many guys that was hurt and banged up. Remember, this is the same 49ers team that a couple of years ago missed the playoffs due to all the injuries. And
last year,
last season actually. and here they are, at the 1 seed. And Kyle Shanahan, I think, deserves a lot of recognition, the job he's done, just as a coach overall. And obviously, Cignetti building off what Indiana did last year, getting to the college football playoff now with an undefeated season, and getting that the only unbeaten team in the tournament. And by Vrabel, I'm with you, Rabbi. I don't know what the heck the Tennessee Titans were thinking and letting him walk. But you know what? The New England Patriots are the AFC East champions again. And I know, like, seems like that's it. That seems so normal for us, obviously coming up and watching the Brady era and the Patriots just dominate the AFC East year after year. And this is the first division title in several years. I mean, because the Buffalo Bills kind of dominated that part. But what Mark Daigneault did with the youngest team in basketball, the average age is barely about 25, 68-14 regular season record. Western Conference coach of the most honors for December, February, and March. And basically the youngest, and basically a team that won it all, went through a grueling 7-game NBA Finals series, and we could talk about that later on. Who knows what happens if Tyrese Halliburton doesn't go down with the injury in Game 7? But you look at it, what the Thunder are doing this year as well. It's like they're not standing pat. I think they realize that even as the youngest team, and when they win their first championship, they are the hunted, and they are kind of being the aggressors. They may have a little kryptonite in the San Antonio Spurs. We see what's happened with those two teams. But when you look at the what this team has been able to do, and when what they have done. They've done it on both sides. They've done it on the offense with SGA and company. They've done it on the defensive end too. So what he has done with this the youngest team is just sort of miraculous. And honestly, you wouldn't get a wrong answer as far as who would be coach of the year out of these nominees,
No.
just because of what they've had to work with and what they've been able to do with those ingredients. But Mark Darnold with the kind of basketball team that are just barely above college years as far as age and being the top of the NBA, and right now for a while it looked like it was OKC and everyone else like for the first couple of months of the season. Yeah, I definitely would give this on to him without question.
Yeah, it's funny. I went back and I checked this. I can't remember the last time we had this many nominees for this award. We had 23 guys. That's tied with our Pro Athlete of the Year for nominees of an award that goes to a person. Each of the finalists, Anthony, you're right. They're all very deserving. I've voted for each of them, but for me, I agree with you. With all the injuries making for a week by week revolving door of a roster, I don't think anyone has done a better coaching job than Kyle Shanahan. Somehow he's not just kept the 49ers in the playoff hunt, but as you said, Rabbi, in your intro, they have a chance to claim the NFC's number one seed with a Week 18 win, which would mean they wouldn't leave home even if they made it all the way to the Super Bowl as it's being played in Santa Clara. They're among the top five teams in games lost due to injury this season with well north of 200. They lost edge rusher Nick Bosa for the season way back in week 3, and linebacker Fred Warner, the heart and soul of their defense, likely for the season. There's not a slight chance he could be back depending on how deep the playoff goes. They lost him in week 6. Quarterback Brock Purdy, running back Christian McCaffrey, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, tight end George Kittle, and left tackle Trent Williams have played the sum total of 4 games together. And yet Shanahan has the 49ers offense ninth in scoring at 27.1 a game, first and third down conversion rate 51%, second in red zone trips 65, and red zone touchdown percentage 66.2 at points per drive at 2.67, an offensive success rate of 47.88. Oh, and both of his quarterbacks, Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, are top 5 among qualified quarterbacks in success rate. What Curt Cignetti has done turning around the Indiana Hoosiers football team is as impressive a coaching job as it gets. Anthony, I agree with you. Mark Daigneault winning the title in OKC capped off one of the best seasons in NBA history. The Patriots winning the AFC East, having a shot at the AFC's number 1 seed, and quarterback Drake May having a shot at MVP makes for a hell of a first season in New England for Mike Vrabel. I didn't even see this coming when I picked the Patriots to be potentially the most improved team in the AFC way back when. What he did made for a very tough choice, at least for me, for our 2025 Head of the Table Award. But at the end of the day, the 49ers are not just surviving, but thriving despite resembling a mash unit all season. And that tipped the scales in favor of Kyle Shanahan for me.
This is such a tough award in terms of just nominees, and usually everyone's like, you have to vote for the winners of the leagues. But this year, it's more about a lot of where these teams were. Yes, Daigneault is the winner of the NBA this season, but just look at where this team was when he got hired right after the pandemic. 22 wins, 24 wins, 40 wins, 57 wins, and his title with 68 wins.
Believe in the process.
Well, the process was another place, and that hasn't gone as well. But I will have to say that just like moving in this direction that they have, look at where Oklahoma City was and look at where they are now. Mm-hmm. Indiana Hoosiers football has had years of terrible football out there. And again, they were until this year the losingest franchise in the losingest college in football history. Now that Northwestern has it. Go Cats. I do have to say that it'll be very interesting to see what Cignetti does on a big stage. By the way, going up against a former Indiana offensive coordinator and Kellen DeBoer in the Rose Bowl coming up 2 days from when we're taping right now on January 1. Vrabel is an interesting case. He was coaching in Cleveland last year as a consultant because of the fact that no one could find a head coaching job, or he didn't want to coach last year. We don't know which one it was. But now you see what he's done The Patriots going the low point of a 4-13 season last year. They were picking ahead of the Jets over the last 3 years. And yes, I did throw a second Jet dig in there, just because it's
You just
interesting
can't
to
help
see.
yourself.
I can't, but it's interesting to see where the Patriots are now
Mhm.
from where they were back then. But Shanahan has just had a history of just being the guy out there. And since when he came in and really turned this team around into a Super Bowl appearance right before 2019, 2020, and then he had another Super Bowl appearance 4 years later, he has a chance to get a third Super Bowl appearance in 7 years if the trajectory continues. And missed the playoffs last year because of just being a mash unit. The same mash unit this year lost Brock Purdy for almost 5-6 weeks. Mac Jones is going to get himself a nice fat contract on Kyle Shanahan's dime. Thank you, Mr. Shanahan. But I do think Kyle Shanahan is definitely a difference maker as a coach. And I think in a year where you could just name NFL Coach of the Year nominees off of your tongue, Vrabel, Liam Cohen of Jacksonville, the way D'Amico Ryans has done everything over in Houston, what what Sean Payton has done, what Ben Johnson has done, and even what Mike McDonald has done in Seattle. All of those things, and I still think Kyle Shanahan definitely deserves his due
Agreed.
in this award.
Agreed.
We move on. While we had a hard time thinking of too many Grinch nominees in 2025, it wasn't because there weren't too many Grinches. It's because these are some strong, mean son of a Grinches. Nominees for the biggest Grinch of 2025 are Lane Kiffin, former head coach, Ole Miss football. Sure, he leaves teams so much he can just say he's going for milk and cigarettes and he'll be right back. But the drama of leaving the 12-1 playoff-bound Bulldogs before their first CFP game ever is a new level for leaving Lane. Nico Harrison, former general manager, Dallas Mavericks, the orchestrator of the biggest WTF trade in NBA history, we'll get to that later, and his backtracking of explaining the logic of it made the city of Dallas pissed, and he was rightfully showed the door in November. Pete Bavacqua, AD, Notre Dame. When an AD makes this list, you know you effed up. Yeah, thank you for that. But his whining over Notre Dame's disinclusion to the CFP and subsequent pulling of them from any other bowl, the Great Pop-Tarts Bowl, makes you realize athletic directors don't have to do something. They don't. Bill Belichick, head coach, North Carolina football. Whether it be his handling of the Tar Heels that made me question if he should coach FBS football, although be it he actually did have a good end of the year, or if he was overrated generally, or his relationship with 24-year-old Jordan Hudson. I'm not going to answer that question. I actually want to answer the question of, can the 73-year-old just stay off my television and not do what he's been doing? And the winner is, don't leave Lane before we're done with this award. It's Lane Kiffin. Jay, great coach, messy ending, perfect Grinch.
Yeah. I mean, look, the guys on this are deserving finalists, each for their own unique brand of Grinchness. I mean, I agree with you, Rabbi. Nico Harrison was rightly vilified in Dallas for trading the franchise, Luka Doncic, to the Lakers, and ultimately it got him fired. Again, rightfully so, as that is the very definition of dereliction of duty and conduct unbecoming a GM. Pete Bavacqua, well, I'm going to rip him a new one later in the show, so I don't want to spoil it. But for now, all I have to say about him in this segment is, dude, get over yourself. As for the hoodie, I am so over him. Like, I don't know if age is catching up with him or the stupidity of thinking that he could just run a college football program the same way he ran an NFL franchise. Surprise, Bill. They may both use a football, but it is not the same game on or off the field. Or as Rabbi alluded to, his 24-year-old girlfriend has way too much involvement in the program. Yeah, I know everybody deny it, but methinks they all protest too much. Or way too much sway over Belichick in general. All of this has contributed to the Charlie Foxtrot that has become UNC football. And any other year, Mr. On to Cincinnati would likely have won this award. But for me, From the moment he ditched Ole Miss for the greener pastures of their rival down on the Baton Rouge Bayou after leading the Rebels to the CFB, Lane Kiffin getting this award was a no-brainer for me. He is hands down the most selfish, egocentric, it's all about me, but it's not my fault coach in all of college football. I'm going to borrow some stuff from our December 4th football feast show where we closed with thoughts on Kiffin leaving Oxford for LSU as why he is most deserving of the award. Kiffin always seems to have one foot out the door of whatever his current job is from the moment he walks through it. And as much as he wants to paint how things went down as a thing that happened to him as opposed to a thing of his own making, and make no mistake, guys, Kiffin has never been a victim of any of his exits, no matter how much certain media folks want to spin it that way. Every exit from the tarmac incident at USC all the way to this one is of his own making, whether it made the back pages or not. As I said on that show, I wasn't surprised that Ole Miss elected to basically toss all of his stuff out onto the quad and tell him to not let the door to the football facilities hit him on the way out, especially not after it came to light that part of his farewell tweet about the sadness over AD Keith Carter denying his and supposedly the team's request to allow him to coach the Rebels during the CFP was not the message that was conveyed in the meeting with the players, according to several members of the team's leadership council. This is who Lane Kiffin is, guys, and it's why he is very deserving of being our Grinch as the worst person in sports in 2025.
Lane Kiffin is, I would put him, I'm going to call Lane Kiffin a Kardashian. Do you really want to commit yourself to this man? Knowing there's always a revolving
Oh,
door.
man.
There's one, he's always got one foot out. He's looking for the next big thing to pop him up. It's always a mess when he leaves.
Oh, yeah.
It's a circus. It's ego. It's all the above. An NCAA issue at times. I never seen a guy who goes in and who like literally chooses violence every time he walks out of a building. Like
Uh-huh.
Lane Kiffin is literally the arsonist that Smokey the Bear warned you about as a kid. That and tells you only you can prevent forest fires. Yeah, you can prevent it by not hiring Lane Kiffin ever for your school
He's
whatsoever.
fireman and arsonist. He comes
I
in
mean,
as the fireman but leaves as the arsonist.
like I made jokes all year about Kathy Engelberg being a bit of a bit
Yes,
of
you have.
a bit of a shitstorm as far as being the face of the WNBA leadership, and we know we'll get into this later on. We know how that has turned out, and also Jerry Jones just being Jerry Jones. Like I watched an old clip on YouTube, and Jerry Jones is literally front and center. I was like, wow, even after 30 years, something's never changed. But then you look at, and of course, Nico Harrison, we're going to get into that later on. But Lane Kiffin, it just he 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 inspires me to want to leave a job and in such spectacular what the fuck fashion that I can only dream of being this bad and being this petty on the way out to where even the players don't want me around. I mean, come on, this is like even like normally you see players like oh we wish you could stay around and stuff, but it's so much of the so much of the catch-22 that is college football right now, as far as yeah we don't want we let's limit the players movement as much as possible, but the coaches do whatever the hell you want. How many? I lost track of how many coaches and assistant coaches were involved in teams that were in bowl games that even didn't coach or coach one more game before moving on to greener pastures. And Lane Kiffin is becoming the epitome of coaching entitlement in college sports since there ever been one. And look, someone on Facebook even said it. Do these universities ever learn? Do they learn anything?
Oh,
Do they research? Look, I get it. He's a great football mind, great offensive mind when it comes to drawing up a playbook. But yeah, but Kim Kardashian is beautiful too. Did you really want to marry her and be number six,
oh.
7, 8 on the I married this person list? No, I wish I wish these university would just think harder. Just come on, just
As okay,
Just
as
do
an
it. Yeah,
Rabbi
Trevor,
SD,
please,
as the
please jump
resident
in.
LSU fan, you need to get your divorce lawyer on speed dial.
Yes.
as an LSU football fan who has enjoyed the team pretty much since he's been able to enjoy college football with other friends who he made around who went to that area. How dare you? And as a person, I do think this just recognizes what the problem is with just college football in general. I kind of documented it on the show that we had right before we went to this one when we talked about the preview of the CFP first round. And I'll even do it again when we talk about the CFP second round. Of the 8 teams that are still left in the dance, Ohio State is losing their offensive coordinator. I believe, if I recall correctly, Oregon is losing both of their coordinators. Ole Miss lost their head coach. So what we're basically doing here, and Alabama's losing their offensive coordinator. I think they might be losing the other co-offensive coordinator too. So it just shows that college football, the coaches rule. Even in college basketball today, John Calipari said we need to do something about this college basketball system. You mean go back to the one and done system where you took advantage of everything? Colleges should at least has allowed the players to gain a lot more with NIL, but then when people bitch and moan about it, you realize that college football and college basketball is still all about the people who put on the headsets. I am an LSU fan, but seeing how the whole Lane Kiffin debacle was handled, and it's not just the history, it's how he left, it's how he denied it the week of, and it was basically kind of discrediting the media, and yes, podcasters are media too, their role in just reporting this and then saying, "Oh, I'm leaving anyway. This is a sad decision for me." I think that's what makes this really a Charlie Foxtrot deal, and I think this is a deserving winner. And I think when we talk about the other nominees, we'll kind of have a little bit of overlap about them when we get into the what the fuck bad portion of our show and good portion of our show in just a little bit. All right, so we move on. So a lot of things made people mad in 2025. Didn't this year seem like a decade to some of you? But the escape of sports had people just as pissed. So let's give some wishes for 2025 and going into 2026. I'll start. My wish is kind of specific. Don't get me wrong. All injuries, especially ones for a long time, are bad to anybody. I don't wish that to happen to anyone, and I wish everyone a lot of recovery time. But for these 4 people that I'm about to say, 4 of the league's best in sports spread across the hard court of the gridiron, I wish the swiftest of recoveries for all. Jason Tatum, who was celebrating an NBA title in June 2024, just 11 months later in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks, ruptured his right Achilles tendon, a non-contact injury that finished off him, the Celtics, and very likely all of this season for JT. Even the biggest Boston Celtics hater, and you're looking at 3 of them, doesn't want to ever see someone's career affected like that. No. Then in Game 7 of the 7th game of the NBA Finals, not even 7 minutes in, Indiana Pacers guard Tyrese Halliburton tore his right Achilles tendon, shelving him for the rest of a game that the Pacers would go on to lose, and shelving him for the season that we're in now. Even the biggest Indiana Pacers hater, and you're looking at least 2 of them right here, can feel horrible over a freak injury. And then in football, let's talk about 2 ACL injuries that would happen just hours apart on December 14th. Kansas City Chief QB Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL at a home game against the Chargers. And in that game, he watched his team's playoff chances go mathematically up in smoke at the same time. And then a few hours later, a Green Bay Packer linebacker, Micah Parsons, in the middle of an amazing first season with the Packers, tore his ACL against the Broncos. In those 4 games, all 4 teams of the injured player lost their games. And the sports of basketball and football lost a little bit of joy these superstars bring game in and game out. Here's to the possibility that 1 year's time from right now, all 4 will be back on the actual field of play. And if they're not at the levels that they were before, they'll at least come close to the levels that they are when they are back. Anthony, you're up.
I think that what upset me the most is something that's kind of been disturbing. I've shared my stories, some of the sporting events I've gone to, and that is fan altercations and fan behavior. getting increasingly more and more hostile and violent to him. And we just saw recently DK Metcalf situation. But remember earlier this year too, with Kenta Mate, and a
Yes.
fan heckling him about his mother who passed tragically a few years ago. There was the situation with Dennis Santana as well. Um, with a fan in Detroit. You know about the Ryder Cup situation, Roy McIlroy, and the heckling that went on there. And we see, and you saw some tragedies with a fan falling 20 feet over the Clemente Wall at a Pirates game back in May when the Cubs were in town. There was a couple of foul ball incidents. Um, we to me, I know that we hold players and athletes to a higher standard as far as behavior, and I'm certainly not condoning what DK Metcalf did. You should
No.
never put your hands in the fans and never cross that line. But I do think it is time that fans should be held to just as much the highest standard. That ticket you paid for, it's not that's not a right to passage. That is not a card for you to just do whatever you want. That is a privilege to be able to pay a good money to go see a sporting event that we all grown up watching. When we were fans, we were spectators, what it is. And it disappoints me when you see fans fighting in the stands, getting looked up hours before a game, and you see fans fighting among themselves, and you see YouTube videos or TikTok videos of fans getting into it with each other and players. And I always said that the if you wanted to go to an area in the world and see people from all walks of life gather around to one setting and be on the same page and all be able to unite over one common cause, go to a sport event. You see everybody
Yeah.
goes to see the root of their favorite team, their favorite athlete, or even an athlete you admire. I've gone to games where I didn't care for the teams, but I admired the players who were involved. I appreciate it. I'm a pro wrestling fan. I admire the athleticism and the people that put the work into the craft. And my wish for next year is that we start holding each other more accountable as fans as far as behavior. That
Mhm.
the major sports, even some of the minor ones, do a better job of controlling some of this outrageous fan behavior. Maybe in that more of a zero tolerance policy to try to deter these things from happening, because this as a player you understand these are people too. These are, yeah,
Mhm.
this is their profession, this is their livelihood. But if you want to go to some if you want somebody coming to your job and heckling you for utter nonsense or whatever the case is, again, look it up, 3 hours at a tailgate party before even coming into the stadium, and then give you crap for another 3.5 hours. No, I just think we need to start realizing that we are all human, we're all people. We need to give each other the same respect we want in return. And we need to start holding each other a little more accountable as well, as far as behavior, being around children, being around the elderly. It's just a whole thing. And it's like, my wish is that we start respecting each other a little more. We start caring about each other's well-being a little more. And hopefully that be able to translate more into respecting each other's boundaries a little more, fan and player alike.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Jay.
I'm gonna make one comment on each of yours because I have both of what you both said kind of resonates with me. Anthony, I agree with you 100%. There is a code of conduct at every venue in professional sports, be it from the team that's the home team there or the venue itself. And it's high time the teams and the venues started holding fans accountable. Um, that ticket only buys you a right to sit in a seat, watch a game, eat food, buy souvenirs. It does not give you a right to allow your worst impulses to come out of your mouth. Okay? Um, I agree with you, Anthony. These guys are human beings. They are not simply names on your fantasy roster. Come on. Accountability, yes, absolutely. Rabbi, as somebody who suffered an ACL tear on a non-contact injury, um, I feel the pain every time I see a marquee player go down with an ACL tear, either from contact or non-contact, on a football field, on a basketball court, to where, those are the two sports where it's most likely to happen. I feel the pain, and it pisses me off that it's still happening every single year. We lose marquee players this way. So I do hope all of them are able to come back, and provide their fan bases with the stellar play that they did previously. I was back on the court 9 months later, and by the time I was midway through my second year back, I was back to who I was before. So that is my hope for all of them as well. The thing that pissed me off the most in sports in 2025, the temper tantrums thrown by college coaches and ADs when their team misses the cut for either March Madness or the CFP. I know it is a sad commentary on the era of society that we currently live in, but sports is supposed to be better than this. Yeah, I get it. The teams that are first one, first four out are always going to believe they're more deserving of the last one, last four in. The coach or AD will highlight some part of their own team's resume or pick on a part of the resume from one of the teams they felt shouldn't have gotten in as proof that the committee is a bunch of idiots who don't follow their own rules, the CFP committee with regards to Notre Dame missing the cut, or they have conflicts of interest that should preclude them from making those final selection Sunday decisions. UNC's AD being on the March Madness committee where the Tar Heels were among the last four in. He recused himself, guys. But the way that some of these supposed grown-ups and supposed leaders of men react is akin to the temper tantrums that my now 10-year-old nephew used to throw when he was 5 and didn't get his way. As we just discussed in the previous segment, Notre Dame AD Pete Bavacqua was a finalist for our 2025 Grinch Award for his borderline unhinged tirades directed at both the CFP committee and the ACC in the wake of the Irish not making the playoffs, followed by his school taking their ball and going home, opting to not play in a bowl game. Look, dude, there are no scenarios where you don't come off looking like a petulant child or a Karen screaming at the cashier to call the manager. Hey, Pete, and all of you ADs in college football and basketball coaches that have lost your mind when your school didn't make the cutty on either selection Sunday, you want to make sure it doesn't happen again? How about you follow the advice of Notre Dame star running back and Heisman finalist Jeremiah Love, who said, quote, "At the end of the day, we left it up to the committee to decide whether we were going to be in the playoffs or not." Basically, win your damn games. It is as simple as that. And if I'm going to turn this into a wish for next year, here's it is. One other thing. If you still don't make the cut, try and act like the leaders of young men that you are supposed to be and throw out the usual cliches instead of throwing stones.
Didn't Rick Pitino do the same thing the first year St. John's didn't make the tournament? Never mind. Never mind.
I wasn't happy about that either. Even though it's my alma mater.
I know, but I completely agree with you. And also Notre Dame.
I call a jerk, no matter whether I root for them or not.
And by the way, Notre Dame, join a damn conference if you're going to do that.
Please.
Anyway, yeah. By the way, just before we continue, please like and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube page on the backslash on the sports lines for both. Facebook.com/on the sports lines or YouTube.com/ on the sports lines.
Do one or the other, but we would love you to death if you did both.
No, do both. Please do both. I would encourage you to do both. We will have some friends join us in just a moment as Pedro Hazel Jr. is joining the chat along with Steve Ferguson, two of our favorites. We will see them when they get on screen. Pedro, you still don't have your video on. So
and you're muted, my man.
Hi, folks.
Hey, the OGs are in the house.
All right. One at a time when we talk. So, guys, welcome again. This is the holidays. We will have Sean Roman in here in just a little bit. But please welcome two of our OGs from the show, Steve Ferguson and Pedro Hazel Jr. Good evening, fellas.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good to see you, gents.
Let's do some plugging before that. Steve and Pedro have a show on YouTube called Sports Lines Plus. Sean joins the team.
It's now the Pedro Fergie Sports Corner.
It's the Pedro Fergie Sports Corner. My apologies on that. They also have a show on MNN from time to time, as Sean Roman will join them, called Trading the sports scene. Trading the sports scene. I had to get a little plug for myself in there as well.
Uh-huh.
And by
I'm
the
in the
way,
spirit too. Charlie Brown shirt here.
oh, I like it. I like it. Thank you for matching. Thank you
Charlie
for
Brown shirt.
matching.
Good grief.
Nice. Snoopy
This
is
was
my
gonna be
family's
a-
mascot, Pedro. I approve.
This was going to be a minion. This was going to be a minion T-shirt, by the way, beforehand. So we'll see Sean in a second. It is time to get to our favorite portion of the show, the What the Fuck trilogy. Here we go. Let's enjoy it. Our first WTF of the night is of the good variety. Parentheses. I can't believe what I just saw. Parentheses. These are the things that make me go on the text the group chat as we obsessively talk about it days on end. Sorry, fellas, if I've woken you up at night. That's how amazing it is. Nominees, please. Luka Doncic is traded from the Mavericks to the Lakers. It was a late Saturday night, the week before the Super Bowl in February, when we learned that the Mavs franchise face was traded to the Lakers with Anthony Davis and pieces coming back. Shows that it's never safe to be a well-performing superstar in the NBA if your GM is Nico Harrison. The 2025 World Series between the Los Angeles Dodgers and Toronto Blue Jays. How could you not be romantic about a Game 3 that ends in 18 innings at midnight Pacific time? Can I interest you in a Game 6 that ends in the ninth with the typical 7-6 double play to keep the Dodgers alive? No? How about a Game 7 where a million things happen and it ends in extra innings with the Dodgers repeat title? I think you'll take that as one of the best World Series of all time. The Indiana Pacers run to Game 7 of the 2025 NBA Finals. The comebacks. Round 1, Game 5 against the Bucks. Down 7, 40 seconds left. Win. Round 2, Game 2 against the Cavs. Down 7 with 47 seconds left. Win. Conference Finals. Game 1 against the Knicks. Down 14 with under 3 minutes left. Win. And the NBA Finals. Down 14 in the fourth quarter. Game 1. Win. A run to remember even if they didn't seal the deal. And finally, from that same World Series, from that same postseason run for LA, Shohei Ohtani, Game 4 NLCS. In this pennant clinching game, Shohei Ohtani had only the 12th three-home run game in postseason history. But to get into this nomination club, you need to be special. So with those 3 home runs, he also pitched 6 innings and struck out 10. That's special. The best game of all time. Winner is the earliest entrant to the list. I'm surprised. It's Luka Doncic's trade from the Mavs to the Lakers. Steve and Pedro, you've joined us. We'll start off with you guys. This is significant WTF moment. We don't get too many significant
I couldn't
WTF
believe
moments.
that. Luka Doncic.
That's Steve, you're muted, but that's okay.
At the deadline to hear some Davis, or even with the injuries he has, that Luka Doncic, man, that guy's a player. And to make a trade like that was an incredible deal. And the Lakers probably benefited the most from that. But Anthony Davis gets healthy, it might be a pretty tough deal eventually.
I believe so too.
Yeah.
Eventually, Pedro, don't you agree? And this how significant this was in the course of just NBA history? Yeah. Okay, so Anthony, again, the significance of this in the history of the NBA really, really gets us to just everything in this whole year.
What's hilarious is this was the same night the Lakers was in Madison Garden playing the Knicks, and it was so funny. I just took the game off. I go to my room, in my bedroom, and then I look at my phone, and even Shams, who broke the story, said, "No, this is not a fake. The Lakers, this trade is real." And Josh Hart, the Knicks, I think, said it all best when he basically was like, "Are we being punked?" I don't think anybody in their wildest imagination could have figured that the Mavericks would trade the guy who literally helped them just get to the finals several months earlier. And a trade that now looks even worse by the day when you think about Nico Harrison is gone, Anthony Davis can't stay on the court anymore, and it was even and you know it was a bad trade when you looked at the PR slander that just really came afterwards about Luka not being in shape and they were worried about his condition, his fitness, not taking it seriously, which is ironically was not an issue just the previous year when he helped you get to the finals, teamed up with Kyrie Irving in the backcourt, and you was able to get through a really tough Western Conference and a showdown with the Celtics in the finals. So now it was just the PR machine trying to justify. It was obviously a trade that no one expected, and for the Lakers, it might have been. And the Lakers are known for getting stars and getting star players, but to basically have one handed to them is probably one of the most unimaginable things you could imagine. And you think about this, they got the perfect star to go away from the LeBron era to the Luka era. And by the way, they're fourth in the Western Conference, and they've been kind of inconsistent because they've had the injuries, but they look great this year. The Mavericks has been a complete mess. No timetable when Kyrie Irving is going to be back. Got lost in the whole shuffle. On top of the fact that a lot of people and a lot of conspiracy theorists out there are still thinking have a consolation prize. They were handed the number one pick in the NBA draft, and it led to Cooper Flag. Now, can you imagine what a Cooper Flag, Luka Doncic, Tangier would have been had this trade not been made? But yeah, this is by far one of the most unbelievable trades. That's only been 3 times I've dropped my phone in mid-sentence. This,
Great.
Shohei signing his contract with the Dodgers, and I dropped my phone in the middle of Court Street. And me getting off the elevator and seeing Juan Soto's ridiculous contract signing with the Mets. Those are the 3 times, and it's been the last 24 months that I damn near broke my phone on 3 separate occasions thanks to an ESPN news alert.
I hope you have a good plan, Anthony. And Sean, as we welcome you
I have a lot of insurance.
I'm glad you have insurance. And Sean, as we welcome you in here talking about the What the Fuck Good Award for the year, I know you were surprised that we didn't vote for the World Series. So I did want to take a moment on that because it's shocking considering all of these nominees that this was the one that didn't get picked.
It was a really fun World Series. It's the type of World Series that gets young people into baseball.
You hope.
It's a type of people, it's a type of series that gets old fans reacquainted with why they love the game. I mean, a 7-game series in the World Series is probably the best moment in sports.
2 best words, man.
It's what you wait for in American sports anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you wait for. And just the flow of this particular series was at the beginning of the series, a lot of people said that Toronto really didn't have a shot. And I was saying, I think they do. And then they came out strong. And then they held the advantage a good amount of the way. But the Dodgers kept plugging away. Like a lot of people were counting Don Mattingly finally having some connection with a World Series championship. It was almost like a countdown outs away, and we were on the verge of it happening. He wasn't on the field, but still. And, it almost seemed like fate, like something was going to happen that was just going to open the door each time, allow the Dodgers back in. And the Dodgers were something of an irresistible force. And just for me, it's like, I usually do root for the National League team, but in this case, I thought it would have been more fun. It would have been more interesting for Toronto after 3 decades of not winning to get a championship, for Canada to win after they, haven't won in eons since like the 90s with Montreal in 93 and then Toronto in the early 90s. So them and their one baseball team to have a championship. I mean, I guess the Raptors in the NBA won more recently. But that would have been really cool if Toronto could have taken it. And I really enjoyed the series because LA was going like gangbusters. They made the Brewers, who were a good team up until then, look like a little league team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're done.
Well said.
Jay, take us home. I know you have a lot of thoughts about this category just in particular.
Yeah. I'm gonna, kind of like echo and tack on to what Sean just said. But like every Mavericks fan, I'm not sure Luka getting traded to the Lakers qualifies as a good WTF nomination. But on the flip side, I have no doubt that every Lakers fan will absolutely think it's a good WTF nominee and deserving of the award in and of itself. And yeah, I'll grant you, that what the Pacers did in the NBA playoffs can definitely be described by the immortal words of the legendary announcer Jack Buck that we use to describe this award. I cannot believe what I just saw. But for me, like Sean, what happened in this year's Fall Classic was just one good WTF thing after another. As someone who lists baseball as his first sports love, grew up on the history of the game, and is constantly invoking Brad Pitt's famous line from Moneyball, the 2025 World Series was my choice for this year's good WTF winner. After the way last season's Fall Classic ended, low-lighted by that horrifically inept fifth inning by the Yankees in the Game 5 series clincher, hey, I'm a Yankee fan, but I can admit it. The World Series definitely needed to wipe the stench of 2024 away, and boy, did they ever in 2025. The 18-inning marathon that was Game 3 was Shohei Ohtani reach base 9 times, 4 extra base hits in his first 4 plate appearances, followed by 5 walks in his next 5, 4 of them intentional, and Freddie Freeman's walk-off home run to end it. You had the insane double play to end Game 6 with left fielder Kiki Hernandez snaring a low-line drive off the bat of Andres Jimenez and firing a strike to shortstop Mookie Betts to double up Addison Barger and secure the win for LA, sending the series to that. As Rabbi said in his nomination, Game 7 for the ages, where the Dodgers won despite never leading until they pushed across the series clinching run in the 11th inning. It gave us a game-tying home run by Hernandez in the 9th inning and Will Smith's series-winning home run in the 11th, the first extra-inning home run in a World Series Game 7 ever. It also gave us Yoshinobu Yamamoto throwing 34 pitches to close out the series after throwing 96 in the Game 6 win. And both teams throwing out the go-ahead run at the plate in back-to-back half innings. As Eric Kiner-Falefa in the bottom of the 9th and Mookie Betts in the top of the 10th. All of that reminded us of what baseball can be, how it constantly shows us things we've never seen before or even thought possible, and makes heroes out of journeymen, Barger hitting .480 for the Blue Jays, and zeros out of icons, Betts hitting .138 for the Dodgers. The 2025 World Series reminded us of why that movie line has taken up a permanent place in the lore of our national pastime and became the latest reason for us to ask, how can you not be romantic about baseball?
And it was something of a contest, the 18-inning game. You were just with your friends. Oh, so what inning did you make it to?
Right?
14.
We talked about that on the group chat. How late did you stay up?
I think I got to like 15, maybe 13 or 14.
I got through it all, but I have to admit, I took a small nap in the later stages of the game, like around the last 3 frames of the regular, before it went to extras.
I think
Steve and I are big Toronto Blue Jays fans, so we were pulling for them. So we were really, really pulling for them.
You know, it's funny for me because I was kind of split because these are 2 cities I have visited more recently, so I have love for both cities. But I made it about the 13th inning, and then I woke up and I was like, what time does this game actually end? Everybody innings. What time in real time
3 o'clock
this
in the
game
morning,
ended?
almost.
3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just like, this is the kind of game. By the way, if you want to endure the agony, the entire 18-inning marathon is uploaded on YouTube by Major League Baseball. So
ads
go
every
right
5
ahead.
seconds.
Yes, go right ahead if you dare to go on to Lee Resistance and see if you can last this time around. But I know I didn't do it the first time.
I will say this before we move on. I was pulling for the Dodgers because, Blue Jays lose. Thank you, Vlad Jr. All right, we move on now to the bad WTF award. Are you fucking kidding me? The event's so negative, so bad that I'm afraid to mention them in the group chat. You kind of are just walking on pins and needles, being like, mention it once and then just walk away.
Lucky for us, Sean is never afraid to mention them in the group chat.
I know Sean is never afraid to mention them in the group chat, but what we're about to see are the nominees for most fuckery of 2025. The Chauncey Billups Terry Rozier gambling scandal. When the FBI gets into the NBA this year, examining NBA veteran Terry Rozier's actions of throwing games on the court and Chauncey's actions of helping to throw card games off of it, you got a lot to discuss. We'll talk about it soon. To be continued. Another nomination for Lane Kiffin, as is leaving for LSU before the team he actually coached, Ole Miss, started their college football playoff. even all the hoopla, the week coming into this, makes me truly believe that Lane is what people said he was, the coaching definition of a hoe. Good luck at LSU. Mark Sanchez in October, when he still had some dignity, the former Jets QB and the last Jets QB to make an AFC championship, and forever Mr. Butt Fumble threw his Fox analyst job away in Indianapolis with an incident with a old DoorDash driver, resulting in Sanchez getting stabbed 3 times and getting charged with 3 misdemeanors. The career of Mr. Sanchez is now forever a punchline. Then finally, Sharon Moore, Michigan's head coach, after Michigan's regular season was over, Sharon's career went with it. Fired from the University of Michigan in December for an inappropriate relationship, and then sued after getting hit with a felony of third-degree home invasion and multiple misdemeanors related to that same home invasion. Too many mentions of law enforcement in this segment. So let's get back to the fun stuff. The winner is Mark Sanchez. The loser is Mark Sanchez. Not from the shock of being stabbed to the befuddlement of his actions. I'll start with Sean. We're not going to associate Mark anymore being the Jet quarterback for back-to-back title games in 2009 and 2010, are we?
I don't know if people saw this type of behavior who were in the NFL, who were coaches, or what Pete Carroll saw, or what the Fox broadcasting team. It just seems so bizarre that he was seemingly out on his own and then doing wind sprints on his own. And then, he saw the truck there and got into some type of dispute. And, the guy's an older man, and a former NFL player starts pounding him, and then a knife gets out and he's walking away. I mean, it's just so bizarre. I mean, that's like, I can't imagine how he would let himself, with that type of, young kids and a family and a great job and position, that people would just line up from here to Mars for, just to find himself in that position. It boggles the mind.
Steve, we'll go to you next. And I do think just 4 incredibly deserving nominees here. What are you focusing on?
Well, I was looking at the Mark Sanchez thing that you guys were talking about, and I remember when he played at USC and how happy a lot of us were when the Jets drafted this guy, and how he went from being almost a superstar hero. The minute his name was heard at Dave & Buster's, people went off screaming and yelling. And when he got us to the playoffs, those 2 years he was the quarterback, I thought this guy had a chance to really be something special in the NFL.
Yes, he did.
But his 10 years in the NFL were mediocre, and they could have been really good if it weren't for the general manager, who I hate to this day, because he took every player that Mark Sanchez had to be good. All of them were gone within a span of a year. Thomas Jones, Cotchery, you name it, all of them gone. But I never knew that Mark Sanchez had it in him to do the stuff that he did that got him fired from his broadcasting job. Now, I don't know what to think about this guy. He went from, I'll be honest with you, from a real hero potentially to a total zero, and we don't know if we'll ever see this guy on the air anywhere after this.
I seriously doubt he will ever be on the air. It's just shocking here. Yeah, I mean, when I saw the news, we were kind of discussing it.
Yeah,
it was just so shocking when we found out about Mark Sanchez.
Yeah,
and a lot of people, of course, remember him from the butt fumble.
I mean, that will never be forgotten.
But but it's just still so shocking hearing what happened. It's kind of like this Mark Sanchez.
Yeah, the same one that was the star from USC, 5th pick in the draft. Oh, actually, nobody. Terrible experience to see.
Great words, by the way, from my yellow shirt brother in arms tonight in Pedro. But Anthony, moving on to you. We had a lot of fun with this, and we're still having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah,
now,
you know what? You know what? There's 2 honorable mentions. The Sharon Moore is a walking example of what happens when you actually risk it all. You probably lose it all. I think that's. Long story short, even when we were brought up on the show, I was like, the more details I read about this, the more I'm like, Jay, this is your team. You might want to take this one. I had nothing to say whatsoever because I don't think there's anything I can add to what was going on. And the Fisikalia calling out the WNBA commissioner Kathy Engelberg after the Minnesota Lynx were eliminated from the playoffs opened up a lot of eyes because she is among the leaders as far as the Players Association for the WNBA. But to see her on such a big platform and have one of the biggest stars really put the league and the commissioner on notice in the fashion she did, I think opened up a lot of eyes. And we've seen some negotiations go back and forth, and it feels like the more that the league is trying to somewhat lowball the players, the more her words is resonating more and more about the poor leadership. Whatever this standoff is, I'm assuming the WNBA is going to move on from Engelberg and bring in someone that may be able to relate a little more to the players for the good of the league entirely. But Mark Sanchez, next year I am pulling for this to be the Mark Sanchez What the Fuck Lifetime Achievement Award, because between this incident in October, keep in mind he was suspended 4 games for violating the substance abuse policy in the NFL as well. You have the butt fumble. He got into legal trouble at UFC as well in 2006. This is a guy who went into Foxborough in January of 2011 in a Tom Brady's house a month after being humiliated on Monday Night Football and outplayed Tom Brady and leading the Jets back to the AFC Championship game. There was a touchdown pass he threw that was so on the money to Brandon Edwards that I was like, that was the throw you get out of a vet, not a second-year player who had been kind of inconsistent up and down. And the poise he played with that game, I'm thinking, okay, the Jets have their franchise quarterback. Little did I know that the front office would sabotage the rest of the team, but also his play didn't get any better. But even through all that, even through the butt fumbles, even through all that, he became a respectable commentator on Fox. Like, it wasn't just the NFL. He did college football as well. And he was a very respectable college commentator. He did some of the late 4 o'clock games, the more regional games. But he was fun to listen to. He had great insight. And then he goes off and do this. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm not mad at you, but I'm incredibly disappointed. It kind of fits here. But it's got to be one of the dumbest things to ever do to lose a job that has great, great job security. You get to be around the sport you love, the sport you grew up playing for years and years. You're on national television, an awful line. You're climbing up the ladder as far as one of the more respectable color commentators in the sport, and you go off and do this on a weekend. You have a game assignment, no less. It's got to be the most. It is the definition of brain fog I have ever seen in my life. As far as going off and losing a job, you were better off. Look, I'll say this: if you want to lose a job, do it in a spectacular fashion. How about lie about being sick and get caught on camera at a baseball game or something stupid that we go all laugh at? This was nothing to laugh at, okay? You attacked that elderly man. Both of you were injured. Thankfully, non-life-threatening injuries on both sides. But yes, there's a lawsuit coming up. The elderly man is in a civil law. He is suing Fox and Mark Sanchez in a civil matter. So this thing is far from over. But as far as Mark Sanchez' team career, oh, you can forget it. It's done. He better sit by that phone and hope ABC's The Bachelor call him at some point, or what reality show gives him throws him a lifeline. But he is, you know what? This whole list can be a what the fuck moment, but Mark Sanchez completely takes the cake with this one.
Jay, finish this off here.
All of these finalists are worthy of our bad WTF award, as each of them in their own deplorable way sullied and stained their respective sports. Lane Kiffin's entry is why he's our Grinch. Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier are the reason our next segment is about the relationship of professional sports leagues and gambling and what it's doing to the sports we love. And as Anthony alluded to, I've ranted enough about Sharon Moore and how he's disgraced the Maize and Blue, becoming the latest chapter in a book interim head coach Biff Poggi has referred to as a, quote, malfunctioning organization where there's something new every year. But what happened to Fox NFL analyst and former Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez to make him the unanimous recipient of our Bad WTF award is just a step above or below, depending on your perspective, especially when you consider that he was already immortalized by one of the funniest, not to mention ignominious WTF moments in sports history, the butt fumble. We were all set to be sympathetic to Sanchez when the story first broke that he had been stabbed in an altercation with another man. And then the truth of what happened came out, and it had all of us using the words that we use to describe this award. Are you effing kidding me? According to the Marion County, Indiana prosecutor's office, the incident took place shortly after midnight on the night of October 3, when Sanchez was alleged to have approached a 69-year-old man. Sanchez ain't even 40 yet. In an alley between two hotels in an apparent dispute over the man's truck, which was parked by a loading dock. According to a probable cause affidavit filed by the prosecutor's office, the man works for a company that specializes in commercial cooking oil recycling and disposal and was, quote, performing his assigned duties when he was encountered by Mr. Sanchez.
Right.
Police reviewed video footage from the hotels and said Sanchez could be seen throwing the man to the ground at one point. They also said they talked to the man, identified by his initials, PT, in the affidavit, and that he said Sanchez smelled of alcohol and that his speech was slurred. Sanchez was initially charged with battery resulting in injury, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle. A level 5 felony battery charge was later added. Marion County prosecutor Ryan Mears summed this up best, saying, quote, we are literally talking about people fighting over a parking space or a dispute about where people are parking, and it resulted in someone receiving just incredibly significant injuries, end quote. I'm thinking right about now, guys, Sanchez is wishing that he could go back to having the worst thing he'll be known for be that butt fumble.
Oh, yeah.
Tonight's episode is brought to you by DoorDash, by the way. DoorDash, if you want to get your deliveries.
I do disagree with Pete and Pedro and Steve. I think he will find himself back on the air, but it'll be some type of podcast where
It'll be a while. It's gonna be a little bit while. It's everything changes after 5 years. All right. So let's move on to the lighter sport.
That'll depend on how many years he serves in prison.
All right, let's move on to the lighter sport of gambling. Our first nomination in that last award was the Chauncey Billups Terry Rozier gambling scandal, and combining that with the incident of Cleveland Guardians pitchers Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, who were indicted with rigging pitches to help prop bets go through, the effect that the boom of gambling in 2025 sports has 100% brought up just as many questions, with gambling's place in sports to go with all of the benefits gambling's place has boosted sports. So, Anthony, I'll start with a simple question, one that you can bet on. Sorry. What's the future of gambling in pro sports going forward?
Oh, wow. The future of gambling in pro sports is that the whole mission of gambling in sports isn't taboo. I mean, I'm watching NFL Red Zone, and DraftKings is one of the sponsors. I mean, 20 years ago, you would never think that any of the major sports would associate with themselves with anything I do with betting, whatsoever, because it was something that you just didn't talk about. And look, we are old enough to remember to remember the movie Blue Chips and one of the players being caught for point chafing. And I was like, this has been going on for God knows how long. But the fact that we are not seeing it being embraced, we're seeing ESPN. Remember, ESPN had ESPN Sports Bet temporarily, and then that fell through, and it signed on the DraftKings, and we're seeing FanDuel and a lot of these stadiums as being sponsors. At least 30 states, to my knowledge, has legalized gambling. So it certainly is not going away anytime soon, but it does start it does start to leave some people question like the results of games and then you see instances like Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier, and then what happened in baseball. It opens up another can of worms that I don't think it's going to be put away anytime soon. Um, the future of gambling in the major sports is just that it's now going to have an even bigger influence on how players are viewed, um how the game outcomes, situations is going to be looked at. And I don't know. I gotta be honest. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for professional sports moving forward, even at a collegiate level. Um, but like I said, I'll leave it over to you guys because I'm more kind of in the like kind of in between mixed feelings about it because it's like yes, it's something that's not going away. It's kind of a hallmark, but at what cost and what exactly does it mean? I don't know. It's something that we're probably going to have to wait and see how it plays out in the next couple of years. As far as will it have an actual effect on sports to where we start seeing more investigations into um you know doing prop bets and you're seeing the NBA trying to do something about it recently and trying to find ways of combating something like this. So it's definitely to me, I think it's just more of a wait and see.
Sean looking pretty much like he's about to get the next card in the World Series of Poker with those glasses right now. A lot of different ways to look at this, especially again with gambling's boom helping out all of major sports. But again, simpler times, we didn't even care about seeing the word gambling in any of these sports at all.
I was reading a Times article and they were speaking about Pennsylvania and they said they legalized all forms of online gambling, including sports. But what actually outsized sports is those little type of slot machine, not going to the slots, but doing it on your phone. And, they brought in $1 billion of revenue for the state when their entire budget is about 50 billion. So it adds a lot to the coffers. So what it's doing for Pennsylvania, it's doing for those people partnering with the gambling companies, which is the major sports leagues, which is the teams that are getting revenue. So that's why it's going to proliferate to the point that people have had enough and it gets stopped by government intervention. Because what the article also expressed is you have these housewives who were bored during COVID and they weren't even gamblers, but this became so in their face and easy to access that they are racking up $5,000 debts, $10,000, $15,000 debts. And that's also happening on a scale with people who are into the sports books, young people who are following the gambling and the spreads and playing the games and aren't developing other marketable skills. And they're thinking they could beat the rake over the long run, and
Hmm.
they can't. So
Nope.
it has to reach a point of critical mass where, investigations find out that enough of these games are rigged where the public loses faith. But until that happens, expect it to expand. It's a delicate balance that we find ourselves in. I think it's an overall bad, though, to directly answer the question. It's an
I understand
overall
what you're
negative
saying, Matt.
because human nature being what it is, you do have these people who, if they just don't use their phones and tell people that what they're doing, they can pull themselves out of a game at any time. They can stop scoring points at any given time. And again, if they're if they're not using their phones and if they have a small enough network, they'll be able to get away with it. Anything where there's money, anything where there's a lure and money can be made, there will be a deal of corruption involved. And that's why it was always best over generations for sports organizations to keep this stuff at more than an arm's length.
And as you said, it might be kept into an arm's length again if more scandals like this come out. And Stephen Pedro, I know you brought up the nomination of the Emmanuel Clase, Luis Ortiz scandal for the Guardians. And going forward, when you look at both incidents, the Rozier incident is bad, but Clase and Ortiz are probably never playing in America ever again because of this. And that's something to really look at more and more as we get into 2026.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Steve.
The reality is with gambling, I mean, years ago when I worked for an organization, I won't mention the name of it, as a media organization. We did have gambling on games, $5 a week, and it was as legit as it will be in that spot, which is $85 a year. But we never realized how deep this gambling was going to go. And when I think of Chauncey Billups, I thought he was one of the better human beings in the NBA in terms of class and decency. But boy, was I wrong about him. And the reality is gambling has gotten so out of control, not only in basketball, but in every other sport for that matter. And I think we're going to be questioning everything we see on a field when we watch these games now. We don't even know what's legitimate on a field or how much gambling is going into these games. You can watch somebody make a great catch and wonder, how much did somebody bet on this to happen, or somebody to fumble or drop a pass in a key spot? That's one of the things that I'm interested in seeing. What are they going to do with that?
I'm concerned. It kind of evokes the Black Sox scandal, 1919, where players got 8 men out, where the gamblers gave the players on the White Sox money to them to lose the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, they ended up winning. They got out of it and they wanted to start winning, but the damage was already done. The players were suspended, and that's when baseball started that's when baseball started getting their first commissioner, Tennessee Mountain Landis. Mm-hmm. That's how all that started to come into being. But with gambling,
Jay was a junior in high school at that time.
We needed to have one joke about age on this.
Yeah, but anyway,
your one joke, you're done.
Anyway, so that's as Steve was saying. When does it begin? It's kind of like even though it's a little unrelated, but it's kind of related, like the quiz show scandals of the 50s.
Yeah,
this is back when they were edging on. They were trying to get more attractive consultants, giving them the answers to questions. Yep. And meanwhile, one of the people who was his competitors, they cornered the producers, and it all came to a whole big mess. And it's very scary. It is very, very scary.
I mean, people talk about AI being scary, and I think in ways it is, leads you to say, what's going on in these sports games? We really don't know now.
Yeah.
Because we can sit and watch a baseball game, a basketball game, football, doesn't matter. Now the question is, what's going on in these games? How much of this is real, and how much of this can you honestly see it? Because AI to me is very similar. We think we're seeing certain things a certain way, but we're being duped into believing they're that way, and that may not be the case. So I'm sorry to say, but I believe this is going to go on for a while, because we have to find a way to investigate what's going on in the sports in general and how people are betting on this and why they're doing it a certain way. I think there's a lot behind this that needs to be uncovered.
Yes, indeed. It's like I said, with the quiz show scandals, they actually coach people who were more attractive because they wanted to push them. They're saying, oh yeah, this is intelligent, get people to watch. And then everything got all changed after that with the sponsors and networks and game shows with all of that. But gambling in sports, like I said, is very similar. That's what
Ron Howard did a great movie in the 90s about that.
Yes.
With
the $64,000 question, if I'm not mistaken. We have 6 great faces for radio over here, so we wouldn't have to worry about being pushed anywhere for anything in terms of, although that's probably why I didn't make my Jeopardy quiz tryouts twice. Jay, take us home.
Yeah, I'm going to start in the past with this before I get to the future. As I referenced in the previous segment, Hall of Fame point guard and former NBA coach Chauncey Billups and former Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, finalists for our Bad WTF Award, finalists together, are the faces of the NBA's gambling scandal, while, as we noted, Cleveland Guardians pitchers Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, who were nominees together for that same award, are the faces of the latest Major League Baseball gambling scandal. All I can say is that no one should really be surprised that we've reached the point where history in both sports, where involvement with gamblers is basically repeating itself and once again staining both sports. With basketball, the historical comparison is the 1951 point shaving scandal involving players from CCNY's men's basketball team, which had won both the NCAA and NIT titles the year before. With baseball, the historical comparisons are obvious, and either one works. Pete Rose, or as Pedro mentioned, the 1919 Black Sox. There was a very good reason to keep gambling out of professional sports until very recently. It was illegal. But since sports leagues in this country are all about the money, which they never seem to stop wanting more of, the moment gambling became legal in multiple states and online sites that allowed bets to be placed from your phone through an app exploded in popularity, the leagues couldn't wait to get in bed with them and sign contracts creating official online gambling partnerships. The leagues were seemingly diligent about letting the players and staffs of teams know what was and what wasn't allowed in terms of use of those apps, and suspensions got handed down, wrist slaps really, if we're being honest though. But everyone figured that with the amount of money they all made in salary, especially the players, the reasons that players had in the past for getting into bed with gamblers no longer apply. Hey y'all, how are those rose-colored glasses fitting right about now? There's a reason greed is one of the 7 deadly sins, and millionaire players don't seem to be immune to it. The pairing of sports leagues and gambling sites on the whole is disgusting to me. The old white men who run these leagues are addicted to raking in money in any and every way possible, but always cry poverty when it comes to a new stadium or anything that makes it easier for a family of 4 to take in a game. I know that these partnerships aren't going away, but the leagues need to A, abolish any and all prop bets forthwith, as these are where individual players can negatively affect a game to help gamblers and take a cut of those wins. Two, they need to adopt more of an NHL mindset when it comes to the injury report. Make it as vague as possible and stop making it public information that can be gotten by anyone to be used in placing bets. Look, I don't expect the leagues and players to suddenly pay attention to their better angels. I'm not that naive. But as we go forward into a future where legalized gambling will unfortunately continue to be part of sports, those in charge of the leagues really do need to make the punishments for any and all gambling-related transgressions as draconian as possible to try and deter those that are involved in the games we love from making a mockery of them just to make a buck.
Can I jump in here for a second and with my opinion, and then I want to kind of go back to you on one thing before we move on. I think this is something that happens. It's a risk having all of this stuff happen. It's a risk, but it's the way to modernize a lot of these sports, especially baseball. Baseball is the toughest one because that's something that you can affect on a pitch by pitch basis. It's not just prop bets. It's literally what's the next pitch going to be? What is this batter going to do? That's something that is something that unfortunately is going to happen. I think the sport of betting has helped a lot of these leagues and has helped examine leagues in a whole new way in terms of getting a modern sports crowd into things like baseball, like even hockey, in terms of a lot of different stuff. And now I was curious, Jay, I wanted to come back to your point. What is it about? I think keeping these injuries public to everybody is also more good for the state of being in terms of team play more than anything else. And I do think, though, especially with fantasy football and people's actions being tied to these players, I do think that's.
I get that. I get that. And I know that's one that like is there. I don't, there, that's one where I know that like we can't completely eliminate people who are potentially going to use that for gambling purposes over and above who to sit and start in their fantasy football team on a given Sunday. But the thing is that if you make what type of injury it is as vague as possible and don't release whether a guy is going to be active or not until you release it only to the broadcast team and right at kickoff after the betting windows close, then I mean, obviously the media and beat writers who cover the team are going to have that information, but you need to find a way to keep that as much under wraps and as vague as possible, because that, as you know, Rabbi, as being a guy who's uses the gambling app on his phone, but you use it responsibly, and as someone who's run his own fantasy football league, we both know this. Um, it is something that is used and is out there in a wide range of channels where you can get that information to be used by people who are not in or covering the sport. And I think I don't know how to what extent it's possible. There needs to be a way to kind of limit whose hands that gets into if you're going to try and limit um, its use as a gambling tool. Because if you think about it, one of the things um, that Rozier is accused of is essentially claiming to be injured at a certain point in the game after he'd accumulated a certain set of stats that if he had gone any further and accumulated any more would have ruined bets for people he
Oh
was
no, I
in.
know that. I do think it's a slippery slope.
It is, and
Try
like I
to
said,
do
I know
that. I think
that's
that's
the
a
one
big one.
that's the one where you're most likely to be attempting to herd cats. But to me, it's a big one that is a big
A
tool
huge one.
used by gamblers to place bets.
It's a huge one, and it's going to have to but that could be another story for another day, because that could get us a little off topic, but I kind of wanted
Yep,
to go into
exactly.
that
It's a
a
rabbit hole
lot
we could
more.
easily go down, on another show.
And we've done that many a times, even down on another show. But let's move on to our final award of the WTF trilogy, the best trilogy since the original Star Wars. Copyright me. Is the look?
That
It's
would
the
be
local.
episode 7, 8, and 9 for all of you youngins out there.
Oh, come on, they know. It's the local edition of What the Fuck, celebrating the good, bad, and ugly in New York, New Jersey sports of 2025. The emotions, all of them, most of them by Anthony Strait, run deep in this category. Our
Oh,
Hey,
first
hey, when it
nominee.
comes to emotional reactions to things that happen in the New York sports scene, we got to give Nolan Toppin some credit, because Top is among in terms of like responding to everything in all caps in the group chat. I think Top gets the award there.
We do, but 3 out of these 4 nominees are Anthony's team, so that
Fair
kind of
enough.
makes it more of that. Our first nominee is the New York Mets. Pulling a New York Mets. Sorry. They signed Juan Soto to end 2024. Life was good with the 45-24 record. It was the best record in the league at the time on June 13th. Rest of the way, fifth worst record in the league. 38-55, turning a 96.2% chance of making the playoffs at their high point to a 0.00% chance at their low point, finishing 83-79. The New York Knicks end this quarter of a century drought and make the Eastern Conference Finals. They beat the upstart Detroit Pistons and favored champion Boston Celtics to enter uncharted recent territory. And even though the trade stopped there, considering the beginning of their 2025 season, the future is definitely bright. Aaron Judge down 6-3, game 3 of the ALDS against Toronto. He hits a 3-run homer off the Yankee Stadium left field foul pole to ultimately keep the Yankees alive, even if it's just for one more day. And finally giving a positive connotation when you associate Aaron Judge at October.
Very generous of you.
It was one day. It was literally just one day. Finally, the New York Giants. They found a possible franchise quarterback, beat 2 playoff teams in the Chargers and Eagles. But let's focus on the ugly. They're currently 3-13. They had lost 9 straight until this Sunday when they played a much worse team in the Raiders. But they blew multiple fourth quarter leagues and a 9-game losing streak. They're looking for a new head coach. They fired Brian Daboll on November 10th. They're looking for a new defensive coordinator after they fired Shane Bowen on November 24th. And God help me, I'm not editorializing here, but if they don't fire Joe Shane here, I will be upset. Winner is, accentuate the positive, guys. The Knicks make it to the conference finals. Anthony, an achievement for the first time in a quarter of a century. And for Knicks fans, it feels like longer, doesn't it?
you know what? I have to go back to June of 1999, the last Friday night. As a Knicks fan, I actually enjoyed myself. Look, you go back to the next season, and you think back to the first the Detroit Pistons series. A lot of people were actually picking them as a team most likely to get upset. And they only won they won 4 of those games by what, a grand total of 6, 7 points overall, including obviously the Boston game winner in game 6 of that series. They went 3-0 on a roll in that first round against the Pistons. And I think the way the Celtics series played out, where they were just very overwhelming underdogs against a team that had lost what 7 straight games, had not beaten the entire season, even got blown out on national TV in one of the games, and they came back from back-to-back double-digit deficits in the first 2 games on the road against the defending champs. They were down by 20 and were able to pull off an overtime in game 1. Played even worse somehow in game 2, and yet managed to win that game and didn't really lead until they took the lead in the final closing minutes of that game. And then in game 3, the Boston Celtics actually decided, yeah, we're in a series
Mhm.
and cut the lead to 1. But I thought the turning point of that series was game 4. And before his injury, Jason Tatum was having a game for the ages. I mean, he had 39 points halfway through the fourth quarter, and then Jalen Brunson got hot and kept the Knicks in it. And the Knicks eventually were able to take the lead. And of course, the moment when Anunoby got the steal and the dunk was the play that Tatum tore his Achilles and was effectively done for the rest of the series. But even then, the Knicks still got smacked in game 5 2 nights later in Boston and had to come back home for a game 6. And the national media was just they were on the Celtic bandwagon before the series. They had still was giving the Celtics a chance to come back and win that series. And I really felt like it wasn't until that game 6 when the Knicks really came out and went on that outscored the Celtics 33-14 in the second quarter of game 6. It was commented by a key defensive play by Mitchell Robinson, where he basically felt like he guarded the entire Celtics team and forcing Jalen Brown to turn the ball over that led to a Josh Hart and one. Or the block on Jalen Brown from behind by Deuce McBride. It was just those little moments, those plays that had a jam-packed Maxwell Garden. You had watch parties over the cities outside the Garden in Radio City even. Um, and just and we've all and us Knicks fans, we've been through the lean years. We've been through the Scott Layden era and the Isaac Thomas fiasco and just years and years of losing and just suffering and even Melo's good years going down the drain. And to finally have that, even though it ended in the conference finals against a Pacers team that, you know what, for what it's worth, and we didn't talk about Rick Carlisle's one of our coaches of the year and the phenomenal job he did with the Pacers and that team. We didn't play like an Indy 500 team every night as far as a track meet, but to have that night, that moment where it felt good to be a Knicks fan, to be alive, to be happy about your team, and I remember look, the next day, I shared pictures with you guys in the group chat. I had my Bronson jersey on, I had my Knicks gear on. That day more the next day I went to the Liberty home opener and they raised the championship banner too. So it's like I got to celebrate 2 of my favorite teams, one winning a championship and one finally breaking through as finally, yes, we're a respectable team again and just walking around and getting honked at, because see Nick fans, finally rejoicing about having a good team for so long. It felt good for me as a New Yorker. Number one, for those of you know, I live right next to the Barclays Center, but I'm a Knicks fan at heart. Nothing against the Brooklyn Nets whatsoever, but I'm New York. I'm orange, blue, true and true. But to see my team finally being at least in the final four as far as the NBA, and seeing what they're doing now and the optimism that we didn't have since those Patrick Ewing teams in the 1990s. And you think about the long list of the Knicks' misfortunes since that last championship in 1972. Yes, the NBA Cup doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but that's a great achievement as a team. To have something to celebrate. there's something to build on. And I think as a Knicks fan, that is what you want to see. You want to see the progress. You want to see where this team can officially be. And we never, if you told me 4 years ago that Jalen Brunson would be probably the biggest free agent signing in recent memory,
In New York, honestly, not
yeah,
just in
and just
basketball, and that's
unbelievable.
just with the Knicks.
Yeah, and then you look at the team that's been built around him with the Villanova guys. This is the anniversary of the OG Anunoby trade
Yep,
that was
years ago
kind of
now.
that it's been such a big deal. You think about Mitchell Robinson, he was on those losing teams. It kind of lost in the shuffle. He is the longest tenure neck. And then you just think about all this misery. And finally, for one night, against the head arch rival Boston Celtics, the team that gets every fan outside of Boston
And,
and F Boston, and to finally have their number
and
and to end their season in a title ring. Um, that you know what for me, that is arguably one of my favorite moments of this year as a sports fan, as a Knicks fan, of course, but as a fan in general, to see a fan base. And I always say the NBA is better when you see the hallmark teams like Knicks and Lakers and Celtics, and even the younger teams like the
and
OKC Thunder. And when they're good, the league as a whole is good. It makes it more exciting. But for one night, I was about as proud to be a Knicks fan. By the way, Miss Sharon is proud to be a Knicks fan too.
Miss
As much
Sharon,
as
shout out to Miss
anything.
Sharon. Shout out to Miss Sharon also with the Crimson Tide also being in the
Yes, she's got
quarterfinals.
her tie jersey ready
Be
for
very
for
close to.
yes.
Do not bother her on New Year's Day from 4 to 8 o'clock.
No.
Also, by the way, you missed one key moment in pop culture history. Timothy Chalamet missed the Met Gala to watch Game
Yes,
4 of
he
the
brought off a
conference
date with
finals.
Kylie Jenner to
Yes,
root for the Knicks.
yes,
By the way, and he has a picture with Larry Fields. He is, you know what? The
the
Tyler
ultimate Nick
Collects.
fan.
He is the lead role for the Tyler Collects story. If this continues right now,
Boy. Pedro, Steve, we're going to change it over to you with this subject. And a lot of things to look at here. Really, two nominees really made the list this year for us in terms of focusing on either the good of the Knicks or the bad of the Mets.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, the Met collapse was probably the worst thing I've ever seen as a Met fan. And we've had incredibly bad
Even
years.
more than 07 and 08, just because of the
I think that's just about as bad.
2008 were absolutely pitiful the way they ended. I remember the Mets had, I believe they had a 7-game lead. It was 2000.
7-game lead with 17 games to play.
Yeah.
And they completely blew it. 2008 was close to being that bad. We were behind, I think, 3 games behind the Phillies. We never caught up to them. But 2025, after 2024, was the worst. And I'll tell you, as
the best record in baseball up until the best record in baseball in June.
Yep.
And then, like Rabbi said, 38 and 55 since after 45 and 24.
I'll tell you what, as a Met fan, 2024, and I've said this to Pedro, may have been their best year ever, including 1986, because nobody on the planet expected the Mets to be within Dodgers. And that was an accomplishment as a Met fan I never thought we would see. Even the Yankees, and your team has been phenomenal for a long time. You only won 1 game against them. We actually won 2. Don't ask me how that happened. It was our year. We were phenomenal. We took care of every team on the list from Atlanta to Philadelphia to Milwaukee. We got to the Dodgers. We were almost there. But I think that was the most.
Yes, it was. It was incredible. Yeah, I mean, it's Mets fans. You kind of expect the worst. We always do.
That was the one year you could say the Mets fans were really into it. We would run out of our offices at 5 o'clock to see these 5 o'clock games because we knew the Mets had it in them to win. And they played their most fantastic baseball 2024. They started the year in 25 like they could really do it. They had the best record in the game. And God knows, only knows what happened to them. In those 3 months, we went absolutely to the bottom. We have a general manager that I have to tell you point blank I can't stand.
Oh
I'm
my
gonna
God.
put my hands around him and strangle him.
You said that on the show. You
Yeah.
want to strangle. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You,
When you're David Stern and you allow the Mets to collapse as they did with those awful trades at the deadline, on top of it, we lose Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso in 2 days. He ruined the entire ball club. I don't know what we're going to be 2026. I had a friend of
Don't you
mine.
dare, Jay. Don't you dare. Just let him vent. Let him vent.
He called me and my friend one of those Yankee Mets game this year, and I said to him, you know what? Pissed off at this team right now. I haven't even thought about it, but I looked it up. It's May 15, 17 for those of you there. But as I've said, I show and hits and so and
so
I have said I would rather at this point see the Cyclones play than this team.
Oh, come on.
We're going to be a
And now you've gone too far. Come
You're gonna
on.
change. You're gonna change our tune to
figure
three.
out, Jay, and I'm telling you, we better get some players off that
we
free
better. But otherwise, we'll see. If we see Pete Alonso, that's another thing.
We'll see.
Anthony says.
That might be it.
Anthony says, "See you opening day."
No.
Sean, many ways to go in here.
Yeah,
Really,
New York
again,
sports
those two.
scene 2025, the 20, quarter of the way into the new century. A lot of great stories in New York, some which we missed. Even the Ryder Cup being here in Long Island, that was a wild thing
which
for
is really
fans.
cool.
A lot of fun. There was a lot of passion. They were a little too hard on Rory McIlroy, and maybe that's the reason why the fans are getting kind of bad karma. Because I hear in New York we've been lacking some championships. Also, one thing we missed was St. John's and a resurgence. We actually
Right.
haven't seen
Big
them
time.
win the Big
Best
East
season in
outright
years.
in many years, and then to run through the
Regular
tournament.
season and tournament champions last year for
Yeah.
our alma mater,
Yes.
Sean.
That was pretty good. And I was at the game against Harvard right before Christmas. And
the
because
game.
of Pitino, one thing I noticed is, even if St. John's doesn't win, they definitely have the best dressed coaching staff in the entire college basketball. It's not only Pitino, but the entire coaching staff has to wear full suits, and it's like they're ready for the runway or some type of, a business conference. So that was a very positive story as well. You guys mentioned Ultimate New Yorker, Nick Fan, Bob Dylan impersonator, Timothy Chalamet. Really, his New York credentials, he just loved absolutely that following that team. He joined Tracy Morgan, Spike Lee, Ben Stiller, all the people we love the camera to go to. So we love living through them because it really was a uniting moment, seeing the Knicks relevant once again, seeing the Garden pumping, seeing 7th Avenue and people climbing the street lights. And, unlike, when something happens in towns like Vancouver where they got to burn the place down, everybody could gather on 7th Avenue and they could have a good time and just enjoy, the magic which the Knicks bring to the court. That was a great story. On the Mets, it was what was most disappointing was if you can't beat and you lose 4-0 on the final game, a relevant game to the Florida Marlins, you're not going to beat anybody in the playoffs that particular year. And,
Damn sure.
That's right.
I want to ask you this, Jay, because it was tough for me. I was rooting for the Steelers last weekend. If you lose to the Browns, what do you think we're going to see come this weekend?
Here's the thing. And I agree with the guys on the Athletic Football Show. What I watched Sunday afternoon in Cleveland was some of the worst football I have ever seen. It was to be expected from the Browns offense, but the Steelers offense was just absolutely pathetic. Wasted a good showing by the Steelers defense minus TJ Watt. He's expected to play, hopefully. It's kind of, in some ways, here's the thing about the Steelers. They're 1-6-1 in their last 8 trips to Cleveland. It's a house of horrors for them. Does it qualify as a Tomlin special, that one game each season where they should win on paper, but they shit the bed in life, in real life? Maybe. But in a other way, it's kind of fitting that the Ravens and the Steelers in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, the final regular
Right.
season game of the one of what we talked about at the top of the show is one of the craziest NFL seasons in recent memory. That's the final game of the year. It is a winner take all, and whoever comes out on top will be, to borrow the HBO show line, the king in the north, and the other one is going home and is going to have a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
All right, now moving on back to the subject in hand for the local award for What the Fuck. Let's talk about just whatever way you want to go to finish this off, Jay.
All right. I took kind of a unique angle when I was looking at the both, some of the nominees as well as the four finalists and the winners, because I have less of a dog in this fight, to use the phrase, than the rest of y'all do. So it never ceases to amaze me that by the time we get to this part of the sports calendar, that the local teams have given us plenty of moments that personify this award. Yes, with all the sports teams in the area, it's not surprising that we annually get some good, some bad, and often, at least on the gridiron of late, plenty of ugly. But I was surprised that we only had 11 nominees this year as compared to the 21 we had last year. But I think the best phrase to describe a lot of what happened in New York sports in 2025, at least with regards to these finalists, is topsy-turvy. Each of the locals had their good, bad, and ugly moments in their most recent season and off-season so far with regards to the Mets. Just look at those finalists. The Mets, as you guys said, went from having the best record in MLB to missing the postseason altogether. Topsy-turvy. Aaron Judge had an MVP season, finally had his postseason moment, but the Yankees had the most peak and valley-filled 98-win season I can remember, and eventually lost in the ALDS to the team that cost them the AL East, the Toronto Blue Jays. Topsy-turvy. The Giants beat two playoff-bound teams in the hated Eagles and the Chargers, but also had a 9-game losing streak where they blew multiple fourth-quarter leads. They snapped that streak by beating the Raiders in Week 17, but may have cost themselves the #1 pick in the draft. Topsy-turvy. Even the Knicks, who are the deserving winners of this award without a doubt, qualify here. They made the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in a quarter of a century, then blew a huge lead in Game 1 and go on to lose that game and eventually the series to the Pacers 4-2, as the Pacers knock them out of the postseason for the second year in a row, leading to Tom Thibodeau getting fired. Topsy-turvy. The fact that in every sport, in every season, the local teams will provide us with enough moments to fill up a ballot with a double-digit amount of deserving WTF nominees is what makes covering them on our regular show and our year-end show both highly entertaining and highly excruciating.
Yeah. By the way, when somebody asks me was this the worst Mets season I've suffered through, I say no. I was at that last game in 2007 as an intern when they got blown out by the Marlins. I pulled double duty that afternoon.
Yeah, we were at the game before that.
I
feel for you, Anthony.
Yeah, I pulled double duty that afternoon and had to go to Giants Stadium to do the Giants-Eagles Sunday night game. So you can't imagine the topsy-turvy life I had to leave for that 18 hours on a random Sunday in September. That was, like I said, that was much worse. The Mets collapse was a 3-month journey of mediocrity that just finally thumped, that just finally had a dud on the last day of the regular season. And even I mentioned it, we can't beat the Marlins. Do we really deserve to be in the playoffs at this point?
Marlins only had like 4 games, ended up 4 games worse than you did, and they have more future right now. The way that
By the way, when the Mets lost in 2007, 2008, they played the Marlins.
In both of those series, and I'm going to close this out here by talking about this and then going over to the next. In both of those years, and also in 2025, game 161, they had a great pitching performance. Whether it be Johan Santana, whether it be John Maine, and whether it be Clay Holmes this year, and then it got blown in the last game after that. So the similarities between those seasons just kind of pack up. Although you call it 3 months of mediocrity, Mets fans call it 3 months of slow death. Also, when you think about it that way. And going back to the Knicks and just kind of tying everything up, and now how they look inserting this season in the Mike Brown era. 23-9, one game behind the Pistons for best record in the East, one game behind the Pistons for second best record overall in the NBA. 15-2 at home. They've seen improvements almost across the board from everybody. Brunson has taken a step up into being almost a top 5 player, and honestly, for me, an MVP candidate. Mitchell Robinson has basically been just the Great Wall of China in terms of just getting everything in his path. Again, I hope I'm not jinxing him, best mentioning it. OG has become a defensive all-NBA player, and the bench is probably the deepest bench that they've had in years, all because of the Tom Thibodeau firing, which I didn't like at the time, but right now it seems like it's the best move. So we'll see what happens. But out of all of these nominees, the Knicks do have, as of right now, the brightest future of any team probably in this New York area.
Yes.
Sean, Pedro, and Steve, I'm giving you you are free to go. Thank you for joining us tonight on this little marathon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Pedro and Steve, just quickly, just talk about the shows that you have. Also, the one you have with Sean and Eminem.
Well, our show is Pedro Fergie Sports Corner. We're usually on every other weekend. We'll be on this weekend. And as for the other show, well, we're on every other Tuesday at 9:30, MNN2. That's MNN2. So if you're in Manhattan or even on the internet, we're on MNN2 every other Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. So catch us, and we'll be doing new shows soon. And Sean hosts with us, and one of you guys, will be on it as well.
We saw our old friend Rich. He was at the controls.
Very crazy. Very
he recognized us right away. That
hasn't changed at all. Not at all.
Enjoy, guys. Keep up the good work. Thanks for coming on.
Guys.
Happy holidays, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having us again.
Thanks for having us on.
All right, as we move on, let's continue on. We have our final 4 awards here tonight, and as we go to our final 4 awards, we got to start in this thing with best college athlete. And while we do that, with best college athlete, these are people who I'd like to assume is just like my college life, trying to assimilate at parties, studying until 4 a.m. for exams, having new experiences that you don't want to remember. But with NIL, now they get a big pile of money to, in the words of Dave Chappelle, be rich, bitch. Yeah. Nominees are Paige Beckers, guard, UConn women's basketball. Hey, this seems familiar. Beckers made sure that the final page of her college career was written, won an award finalist, and leading UConn to their 12th national championship. Fernando Mendoza, QB, Indiana football. Listen up, Diego Pavia of Vanderbilt. This is the actual Heisman winner. Shut up. The QB transferred from Cal, transferred to Indiana, and took the Hoosiers to new heights. 33 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and the leader of the undefeated Big Ten champions as they head to the college football playoff. Close your ears, Jay. Cooper Flag, forward Duke. 19.2 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game in college. Worth the hype, my friends. The stat sheet stuffer for the Blue Jays led Duke to a 1 seed at a Final Four run. The Wooden Award winner has step 1 to superstardom. And finally, Jeremiah Love, running back Notre Dame. For all the complaining we've done about Notre Dame's non-CFP actions, don't let that affect that the Fighting Irish R&B's 2025 campaign was special. 1,372 yards, 18 TDs. He scored in every game but the opener against Miami. Jeremiah, you might have helped the situation there if you did that. But anyway, Jay Love got the rare Heisman finalist trip to New York for a non-QB. And the winner is so nice. We had to give her a win twice. Paige Buckets. Jay, very rarely does anyone win in 2 separate categories of the year, but there's something special in the book of Paige.
Yeah, College Athlete of the Year is a recent addition to our awards. So it wasn't around when Caitlin Clark went from having one of the most prolific final collegiate seasons to having one of the best inaugural professional seasons. So she didn't have the chance to pull off that double. Thus, it's kind of fitting that in a year where we do have both awards, that Paige is the one to capture both. She led UConn in scoring at 19.9 points per game, led the Big East in assists at 4.6. She had 4.4 rebounds, 2.1 steals, and almost made the 50-40-90 shot shooting club, shooting 53.4% from the floor, 41.9% from three, and 88.9% from the line. She was first team AP All-American, first team US Basketball Writers All-America, Women's Basketball Coaches of America All-America, and Women's Wooden All-America. She was also the Big East Tournament MVP and won the Wade Trophy as the best female college basketball player in the country. Oh yeah, and to borrow from Ryan Rucco's call, the last page in the UConn Book of Beckers was a national championship as the Huskies routed the vaunted South Carolina Gamecocks 82-59. The same Gamecocks who ruined Caitlin's storybook final season the year before in the national title game. Paige had a quiet game in the final, just 5 of 14 from the floor, 0 of 2 from 3, 7 of 7 from the line, en route to 17 points. But in the 5 games leading up to the national title game, she averaged 26.4 points per game on 55.4% shooting from the floor, 51.9% from three, and 80% from the line, including 3 straight 30-plus point games, 34 versus South Dakota State, 40 versus Oklahoma, and 31 versus USC. While Paige was missing the better part of her sophomore season and all of her junior season rehabbing from injuries, Caitlin was taking the sport by storm, so folks kind of forgot about the kid from Hopkins, Minnesota, who was AP Player of the Year as a freshman. After a senior season where she lost to Clark and Iowa in the Final Four, Paige elected to come back to Storrs for a 5th and final season, and she had only one goal in mind. What she got was a storybook ending for one of the best college basketball careers in history, and it's why she's most deserving of this award.
Yeah.
Rabbi, you're muted.
You're muted.
God damn it, Anthony. No other words to say in this category for really good nominees and a deserving winner.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, Rabbi. You didn't you just spend the Saturday nights on Hobson campus drinking Co-Ed Mountain Dew and binging on video games like I did. I mean, you actually
Absolutely
did
not.
something. You did something constructive with your time and energy.
I
I'm
mean,
shocked.
constructive is really a really multi-layered word.
Oh man, I was still bumming flies to the Stoop Center to go to Sobrero. So you kidding me? No, get back to Paige Beckers. I think Jay said everything I could have possibly said. I mean, the final page, no pun intended and pun intended, and the story career of Paige Beckers at UConn, it was pretty much a finished chapter. I mean, she can't remember. You all kind of forgot that was lost in it, and Jay brought it up. She tore her ACL and missed the better part of her sophomore and a good point
All of
of
her junior
all
season.
her junior season. So to come back in the way she did, and obviously coming back in force, obviously, and finally getting the national championship. And she averaged 24 points a game in the NCAA tournament, career high 40 in the Elite Eight round. Finished. Her legacy at UConn has been pretty much set in stone. First freshman win all major national player of the year awards, the Wooden Naismith AP USBWA in 2021. All-time biggest scorer at UConn's, 3-time Big East Player of the Year, tournament MVP. Oh, and yes, she graduated in May of 2024. So to see, and I said this earlier in the show, to see her do this and to go into the WNBA with pretty much not much downtime in between the national championship game that took place in April and the first WNBA game that took place just weeks later, and then not have that drop off that we did see Caitlin Clark kind of have as far as the adjustment period, um, and her rookie season. It just shows what an amazing and complete player Paige Becker is at this early stage of her career, and she's only gonna get better. I think that's the scary part. If
Yep.
you're an opponent or an opposing coach, she's only gonna get better. And you gotta believe the Dallas Wings are going to put better pieces around her since they know she is the foundation and she is going to be around for quite a long time. But to end the career, to end that the career at UConn, and I love the relationship that she had with Gina Auriemma. Just a real funny relationship dynamic that the two have. that kind of capped it off. I think that's the cherry on top to Paige Becker's collegiate career, and it's a great and it is so as a prelude to what we are now seeing now in the WNBA, and we're going to eventually see with Team USA basketball. If we've seen the workouts lately, she was a standout, and there's a reason why that she was so heralded after her freshman season, and that's an industry because of what and how Caitlin Clark kind of came onto the scene, kind of got forgotten about, really. And then last year, she reminded everyone that, hey, she's not called Paige Buckets for nothing.
The NBA, WNBA are in very good hands with the load of talent that they've had coming from college into the NBA over the last 5, 6 years. That's for damn sure. When you look back at now, we've talked so much about Paige Beckers. I kind of want to look at Fernando Mendoza for a second. He was pretty close to winning this award as well. We also talk about Kurt Signetti and his role in leading Indiana to this turnaround, and rightfully so. And he was nominated for Coach of the Year for that reason. But I do think you have to look at the quarterback position. In 2024, it was Curtis Rourke, also a transfer. He was a transfer from Ohio. His numbers were insane. 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 70.4 completion percentage. And it got topped this year by what Mendoza did. Now, this is a guy who in California had pretty good numbers, too. That's why he took advantage of the transfer portal. The year before, he actually had more yards. He had 3,004 yards, but only a 16 touchdown to 6 interception ratio. But then this year, his numbers just went through the roof. And the fact that it's not just the numbers, which we talked about before, it's what he did in the biggest games out there. He's played 3 top 10 teams, at least at the time that they were playing, and his numbers are outstanding. In the game against Illinois, it was on a Saturday night. They won 63-10. Illinois is still a top 25 team pretty much for most of the year. 21-23, 267 yards. Oregon, at Oregon, one of the toughest places to play, really a statement victory for Indiana, 20-31-15. And then doing what he did in the Big Ten Championship against Ohio State, 15-23 for 222 yards. We're going to see the best of Fernando Mendoza, not just the fact that he has been leading an Indiana team, which we've gotten into a lot in this show, and hopefully we'll see them do some good things in this playoff again as they play Alabama in the Rose Bowl. I think he's also a great man. He also really had his Heisman speech with dignity and really shows that he is going to be a very good man for whichever team ends up drafting him in this year's draft, where he will most likely be, if not the best quarterback coming out, the second best quarterback coming out next to Dante Moore of Oregon. So, but couldn't go wrong with Beckers or Mendoza. I think it was a 2-horse race here, and I truly think this is going to be, just going back to Paige Beckers, this is not just going to be Paige's team leading the Dallas Wings to much better records than they had in 2025. This is going to be Paige's league in 5 years, in my opinion. I think she's almost a better scorer right now than Caitlin Clark will be. All right, let's move on. 3 awards left to go. Best College Team Award is next. There is an I in NIL, but no I in team. Also, no I in booster and no I in benefactor, which helps you give the money to build your team. That's why you have these nominees for the award. Let's get to them. Your nominees are Florida men's basketball, building their legacy one Walton Clayton Jr. clutch shot at a time. The Gators turned their team around in just 2 years' time, from 16-17 to a national title after a memorable title game against Houston. Kind of gets lost in the shuffle of this year, too. UConn women's basketball. The OG women's college basketball dynasty reclaims their throne after 9 years of being nice and letting others have it. Demolishing reigning national champion South Carolina to reclaim the crown. Ohio State football. The 4-team inaugural college football playoff champs in 2015. The inaugural 12-team college football playoff champs in 2025. 3 wins in the calendar year against Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame to win the national title. They had 12 wins to start the season, and they'll be playing tomorrow night as the number 2 seed in this year's CFP. And finally, Indiana football. As of right now, there's only 1 team who went to the regular season with a 0 in the loss column. Only 1 team to beat Ohio State football this calendar year. Only 1 team who can say they won their first conference title in 80 years. and only one team with a head coach you can be positively impressed with when you Google them. That team resides in Bloomington. And the winner is words I think I would never say in my entire life, Jay. Indiana football, one of the most impressive turnarounds in college sports
Yes.
history.
Yeah, look, each one of these teams authored a fantastic championship season and were easy choices as finalists. Each one of them won a national championship. That's why they're here. But when you take their previous history into account, as you alluded to, along with what they did last season, which came out of left field and had us thinking there was no way they can top that. What the Indiana Hoosiers football team has done this season is why they're the no-brainer choice for this award as our best college team of 2025. Think about this, guys. Before November of this year, Indiana had the most losses in college football history. In the 125 seasons prior to Kurt Signetti being hired in December of 2023, none of the previous 23 coaches left the school with a winning record in conference play. Only twice had the Hoosiers claimed even a share of the Big Ten title. The last was a three-way share back in 1967, which was the last time they played in the Rose Bowl. To borrow from Scott Docterman's piece this week in The Athletic, quote, generations of administrative dysfunction, low football revenue, poor recruiting, and a department premium placed on basketball turned Indiana football into a wasteland. That is a paragraph I wish I had written. Cut to this season where the team that every other Big Ten school used to want to play on homecoming day did this. 1. Went 13-0. 2. Beat the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes in the Big Ten title game. 3. Claimed the CFP's #1 overall seed. 4. Quarterback Fernando Mendoza won the first Heisman Trophy in school history, and their head coach, who has gone 24-2 in his first 2 seasons in Bloomington, picked up his second straight Coach of the Year award. When Signetti was hired, he told the assembled media at his introductory press conference, quote, I win, Google me. Now that statement was mocked back then. Who did this guy from Group of 5 school James Madison think he was? In the 25 years prior to Signetti's arrival, no Big Ten school and only 3 power conference schools lost more games than Indiana. Over the last 2 seasons, no team has fewer losses than Indiana's 2. Ain't nobody mocking Signetti or any Indiana football now, guys.
No, they're not. And the thing is, when you think Indiana, you think of basketball. You're not football is like the least of the furthest thing from your mind when you think of the Indiana Hoosiers, and just the 2-year turnaround that this school has had, just remarkable. I mean, and also the team that they beat, Ohio State, we forget they won a national championship and lost 14 players in the NFL, and here they are in the 2 seed. It's in the game tomorrow night against Miami. I mean, and they got the monkey on their back and Jay, I'm sorry to bring this up, finally beat the Michigan Wolverines when it matters the most. And so these 2 teams, it's like, look, it wouldn't surprise me if they're on a collision course and meets again and will meet again as in these college football playoffs. But they're both great stories. I mean, and obviously we just talked about UConn and nauseum about their national championship. And Houston, basketball is great consideration to Florida, the national champs. But yeah, Indiana Hoosiers, just this football program, astonishing turnaround the last few years is just something that you couldn't script. Even with the best movie producer, the best writer, even if Oliver Stone himself is kind of funding this project for a movie, you wouldn't get this kind of ending. It just been remarkable. I can't I'm so looking forward to the college football semifinals. I think they're all great matchups, but Indiana is definitely really deserving this team because not just where it was last year, but how you build on your success. It's just as much the story as the story of the success itself. And the Internet Hoosiers has done just that. You want to Google them? Go right ahead. You're going to be very impressed by it.
Yeah, and I think when you look back, and let's not take away with what UConn women's basketball did, finally getting back to the top of the mountain and the way they handled really manhandled, not just in the national championship game, but in the regular season as well. Dawn Staley's powerhouse South Carolina women's basketball team to get them really back to the mountain, and they're undefeated this year, the number one team in the women's college basketball game. Very impressive. When you look at Florida and the run that they had in the 5 games, obviously don't talk about the round of 64, but beating defending two-time national champion UConn, which is not an easy feat to do in any way, shape, or form. To beat Maryland, who had Derek Queen, one of the best college basketball players in the country. To beat Texas Tech, who gave them everything, and they had to have a late comeback. To beat Auburn, the overall number one seed, to end Bruce Pearl's coaching career until he coaches again, and Houston in a championship game for the ages that was probably won by the most terrible final play that you could ever imagine that Houston developed to lose that game. But Florida deserves all of their accolades as well. And Ohio State, they're the closest thing to a pro football team as we have currently in college football right now. They have a defensive coordinator in Matt Patricia who is proving to us that he's more than just the pencil guy from the Detroit Lions because he has studs in every part. And oh yeah, they have a wide receiving core that is better probably than like half of the NFL teams out there. Jeremiah Smith, when he's able to finally go pro next year, is going to be one of the most sought after wide receivers in history as long as he stays healthy. But overall, what Indiana did, the numbers are very simple, and I'll just say them to you. 1988, the last time they beat Ohio State until this year. 1968, the last time that they went to the Rose Bowl until this year. And 1947, the last time they won an outright conference title. When you do those things, when you haven't done those things, it doesn't matter if you haven't won a national championship yet. You put yourself in the best position to get an accolade here. And I'm hoping for their sake it continues in the playoffs and they can top it off the right way in Miami in late January.
Yeah, anytime you do something for the first time since Flounder was a legacy in the movie Animal House, you deserve some kind of recognition without question.
Animal House is always appreciated over there, although Animal House was like 1970s and not 1967, if that's what you were thinking of it there. But I'm just trying to get you set on that. All right. Why do I correct people so much now? It's ridiculous. All right. The definition of a dynasty can be many things for our nominees for best team, but it can be teams that have won back-to-back titles. Teams whose standard of excellence has sent them to a level of making and winning champions unseen in their franchise history, and a team that might be a dynasty in the making. Judge for yourself with these nominees. We'll start with the Oklahoma City Thunder. The NBA champs had the best regular season record in the association, but it was the 7-game wars with the Denver Nuggets and Indiana Pacers that showed the first franchise title is the hardest to get and maybe the sweetest. The Philadelphia Eagles marched through the NFC Championship and Super Bowl 59 with ease. Take that, Kansas City. But their most impressive note might be finally being the first team in over 2 decades to win goddamn back-to-back NFC East titles. Finally done. The Los Angeles Dodgers. To beat the champs, you gotta knock them out. It's the prophetic words of World Series announcer and happened to be Dodgers local announcer Joe Davis. The Blue Jays threw every punch, but the Dodgers survived and went back-to-back. And speaking of back-to-back, the Florida Panthers. A second straight Stanley Cup final victory over the Edmonton Oilers showed that Florida hockey has more than one dynasty, and also that also that Canada hates the state of Florida probably more than the United States does now. The winner is Jay, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the beginning possibly of a lot of hardware coming to the Paycor Center.
Yeah, the nominees and finalists for this award are always the champions of the 4 major North American sports, so each is always deserving. But you know that in order to get the votes needed from our panel to top not one, but 2 repeat champions in the Dodgers and the Panthers, you have to put up a championship season for the ages, and that's precisely what the Oklahoma City Thunder did, going to 7 games in 2 of their four postseason series, including the NBA Finals, en route to lifting their first Larry O'Brien trophy since leaving Seattle. They went 68-14, best record in the NBA last season, and became the third team in NBA history to notch 68 wins. They won the Northwest Division by 18 games over the Denver Nuggets and secured the Western Conference #1 seed by winning 16 more games than the surprising Houston Rockets. They were number 4 in points per game scored, 120.5, number 3 in points per game allowed, 107.6, number 3 in offensive rating, 120.3, number 1 in defensive rating, 107.5, and number 1 in net rating, plus 12.8. They were one of 2 teams, the other was Boston, that was top 5 in both offensive and defensive rating. They had the association's best player and all-star guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was the NBA scoring leader, 32.7 points per game. Regular season, he was also the regular season MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP, and first team All-NBA. The Eagles effectively and emphatically ended the Chiefs' dynasty with their 40-22 win in the Super Bowl back in February. The Panthers knocked off a very good Edmonton Oilers team for the second year in a row, and more decisively than they did the previous year. The Dodgers, as we've already discussed, gave us a World Series for the ages to complete their repeat. But OKC was the best team in the NBA pretty much wire to wire. Their longest losing streak, 2 games. It happened twice. They only had 2 stretches where they traded wins and losses, and they had 2 winning streaks of 10 plus games. It doesn't get any more dominant than that, and dominance gets you our award for best pro team.
And speaking of dominant, they were dominant this season again. But for the longest, they were in the talks of 73 wins was popping up. But yeah, I mean, you think about these teams. And by the way, I still say the Giants should get a 10% share of that Super Bowl the Eagles won for basically letting Saquon Barkley walk
Basically
freely
handing them Saquon.
down the I-95 to Philadelphia. And by the way, didn't it feel like every game watching the Eagles last season, Saquon was going to break a big run or give you a highlight reel?
Yep.
Ironically, except the Super Bowl one year, he was actually held in check.
Yeah, he was
Go
actually
figure.
human in the biggest game of the year. But everyone else, he was basically like a Super Saiyan. Like at some point, he was going to make a big play, whether it was hitting the home run like he did against the Rams in the snow in the playoffs, or even has the Commanders took a very brief 3-0 lead on an opening drive in the NFC Championship game. Here comes Saquon running for a big 70-yard run that put the Eagles up for good pretty much in that game. Or even his backwards hurdle that made the cover of John Madden football this year. It seemed like Saquon Barkley was the missing ingredient to an Eagles team that had made the Super Bowl just a few seasons prior to, but had lost something on that offense. And whatever it was, he was the missing ingredient. And you saw Jalen Hurts that offense took off, the tush push, the receivers, AJ Brown in particular, and that offense was just explosive. And I said like this year that what was the biggest ingredient missing? It's the big plays. They're not getting the explosive plays that they were getting last season, but they're still pretty much an effective offense. Whereas last year, it just seemed like every week there was a highlight reel waiting to happen. The Dodgers and the Panthers are the living proof that getting to the top is one thing, staying on the top is something else. And the Dodgers took every single body blow you could possibly take from an opponent in the Toronto Blue Jays. It still came out standing. That was basically what you call a no-mas situation. That I don't think it would have been a loser if there had to be one. And it gave us one of the most classic World Series we had in recent memory. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, just wire to wire last season, just being the dominance they were, and got tested. And it wasn't like they ran through the postseason either. The Denver Nuggets gave them everything they had, including including a game winner from Aaron Gordon. That I still don't understand how the hell that became a game 1. how that was a game winner, and yeah, and they had to come their own adversity. Remember, they blew a big lead against Denver in game one. They had to come back from 20 down to complete the 4 game sweep against the Memphis Grizzlies in round one. And we know about the collapse in game one at the NBA Finals, that led to Tyrese Halliburton winning the game in the final seconds of that, and having to go back and forth in that series. So the Oklahoma City Thunder, with the average of 25.6 in terms of age, um, so the maturation that was beyond their years, the coaching that we saw kind of build up over time, the superstar player that was coming off, by the way, heartbreak in the Olympics just the prior summer with Team Canada, with SGA, and being like and just the season he had, and becoming. And we're going to talk about this more, obviously, with best pro athlete, and the Oklahoma City Thunder just being dominant and just carrying over to this year, knowing that they're the hunted and approaching every day like they still have the chip on their shoulder. They are these are look, when we talk about best pro team, you can't go wrong with any of these nominees, even the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers getting a second crack at them, and being able to repeat as champions. Like, you can't go either way, but yeah, I tip my hat to all 4 teams. Oklahoma City Thunder are well deserving, but so are the other 3 teams, without question.
So I look at this in two ways before we move on to our final award. I look at this in the way of we were talking about topsy-turviness in all of these sports. We talked about it in our open. We talked about it in the segment we talked about for local WTF. But are these teams kind of in some way sort of serene, sort of calm? I talked about how the Oklahoma City Thunder kind of just moved their way up. They were the 1 seed last year. They just moved up another notch and were able to get their playoff tests in against the Nuggets and against the Pacers en route to the NBA championship. The Philadelphia Eagles made 2 Super Bowls in 3 years and really rode it almost in a completely different way. And eventually, in the Super Bowl, they got the performance from Jalen Hurts that I don't think anyone's actually seen it all this year. Is that Jalen Hurts somewhere going forward? Because I feel like he's on a milk carton. But also, by the way, that defense of Vic Fangio pretty much gave you the blueprint on how to beat the Chiefs, and I don't think the Chiefs have ever been the same way since. You look at our back-to-back champions with the Dodgers and the Panthers. They were both in situations that they hadn't been before. The Panthers didn't have home ice advantage in any round, but they proceeded to beat Tampa Bay, proceeded to do what Toronto was used to in having disappointment from the Leafs in the second round, and then once again beat the Carolina Hurricanes in the conference finals, again, as they did before. And then they found their way to winning against the Edmonton Oilers yet again after the Oilers took advantage in the beginning of that series. You look at the Dodgers, they had to go through a wild card series, although you wouldn't even have known the Reds had actually made it until I told you, because they were barely in the playoffs for that long. Then they have the series against the Philadelphia Phillies when they don't have home field advantage, and then they have that dramatic ending to Game 4. Then they have the series against the Milwaukee Brewers, who I don't think anyone would believe that they were the best team in the NL unless I told you right now, because it didn't look like it in any way, shape, or form in that series. And then you look at how they did it in the World Series against Toronto, which we talked about on end. We talk about the Eagles. They were the number 2 seed, though, in that postseason. The 1 seed were the Detroit Lions, who got knocked out. So they had to go through 3 rounds where they defeated the Packers, had that classic game against the Rams, and pretty much overmatched the Commanders, who were just kind of not in a happy to be here sense, but kind of one step farther than I think they should have been. And they kind of didn't really get to that level again this year. But looking at it forward, the Oklahoma City Thunder were the hunted going into that 2024-25 season. They were the 1 seed. They were the favorites, and they took the step that they needed to take. They followed through the entire year, and that's why the Oklahoma City Thunder have the invisible hardware that we've given them for best team of 2025. Our final award, the end of the line, the final bosses of their respective sports without The Rock actually showing up. It's time for our athlete of the year. The 2025 accomplishments are almost superhuman like for our 4 nominees. Matthew Stafford, Los Angeles Rams quarterback. The beginning of his 2025 was kind of murky in LA. Remember, trade rumors were out there, but he got a contract extension, a new toy, Devontae Adams, and he responded in kind with 42 cute touchdowns and 8 INTs. Had to rewrite this after last night. Damn you, Matthew. And the best season of his career. Fair trade, I think. Aaron Judge, outfielder, New York Yankees. 331, 53 homers, and 114 RBIs. Another MVP. The captain of the Bronx Bombers added postseason accolades to his already legendary resume. Now he's the player who can get it done while the rest of his team can't in the postseason, just like superstars always have to. Anyone see a big dumper? Cal Raleigh, catcher, Seattle Mariners. In any other year, the AL MVP is his, but with only the fourth 60 home run season in MLB history, leading his team to 1 game away from the World Series. We'll make room for him here. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, guard, Oklahoma City Thunder. Who knew this was the true centerpiece of the 2019 Paul George trade from the Clippers? SGA had a great season, his first MVP, 34.2 points per game, 6.4 assists, and 5 rebounds. Seattle Thunder finally win their first Larry O'Brien trophy. And the winner is Thunder. Continue feeling the Thunder. It's SGA. And Anthony, his first MVP of an already blossoming career, launching him into the superstar megaverse.
Yes. He joined Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, only players in NBA history to win the regular season MVP and Finals MVP and scoring title in the same season. Led the league with over 2,484 total points, 4 50-point games during the regular season, scored 21 points in 72 consecutive games during the season, shot a highly efficient 51.9% from the field, 89.8% from the free throw line, and you complain all you want about how he draws fouls. You don't like it? Stop him. Figure out a way to do it. The other nominees, Kyle Rowland, the season he has, 60 home runs. And keep in mind, T-Mobile Park in Seattle is not noted as a home run friendly ballpark at any point in its history. It tells you the special season that he had playing one of the most demanding positions in baseball and catcher. Aaron Judge, and I say this as a Met fan, we forget. I was happy for him to get that Game 3 moment because the Game 5 collapse the previous year did start with his drop fly ball. And I always say, look, I know he's on the Yankees. I'm a Met fan. I do respect Aaron Judge. I think he's great for the game of baseball. I think he's been a great character on and off the field. I think he has carried a tradition of what it means to be a Yankee, true and true. So when I was probably one of the few Met fans that happy to see him stay in New York when he was a free agent and re-signed with the team. And Matthew Stafford, I on the previous show, I actually talked about putting my money on the Rams. Today he goes out and throws how many interceptions in the last few games? Yeah, they took making me a betting man and a losing one at that, Matthew Stafford. Thanks a lot. But there's one
Not
person
uncommon for you, though.
Oh no, you see my
I've seen your
parlay bets on
parlays.
FanDuel. They're pretty awful.
Not good.
But
Not good.
but there was one nominee that didn't make that final four, but I do want to bring an honorable mention to, and that is Asia Wilson. And
Yes.
I have said in our group chats that there is a phrase that I describe Asia Wilson. She is inevitable, and I say this because when you are the best and you are the gold standard as far as what it means to be the best of your league, you don't just show up, you show out. And how's 2025 season, her 4th MVP that actually surpasses the 3 that Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, and Lauren Jackson won prior to, averaging 20, she averaged 23 points per game and 10 rebounds in the regular season, publicly called out her team after an embarrassing loss halfway through the season when they dropped to 500. They were 14-14 when she publicly called out her teammates for the lack of effort. And the Aces went on to proceed to win the next 16 games to end the regular season and to secure the number 2 seed in the WNBA playoffs. She was just as good in the WNBA postseason. 26.8 points per game, 10 rebounds, game winner, and won the WNBA Finals game over not one but two defenders. Um, Bam Adebayo's better half as shown, and yes, shout out to Bam Adebayo, by the way.
Are they a cute couple or what? Come on.
They are
Come
a
on.
funny couple,
Talk about
by
a
the way.
basketball power couple. You know, it's kind of I kind of smiled when I found out the two of them were together.
Look, there was a couple of moments in that series against Indiana. By the way, Stephanie White deserved a little bit of a nod for the job she did with the Indiana Fever, despite missing 5 players, including Caitlin Clark, the season-ending injuries, and having won one game of the WNBA Finals. But and it was a couple of times that series she did post moves, and I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, either she learned that from Bam, or she studied film and used it against them during their practice sessions.
Why not both?
Yeah, because one of the days Asia Wilson talked about, and it was in an interview, that she had struggled against bigger players like Jacqueline Jones and like some of the more versatile bigs in the WNBA. And she learned some more post moves, and she was just on her game. And this is why I'm like, yes, this is why I feel like as a fan, I'm big on the WNBA. And by the way, her first signature sneaker that sold out within minutes, without question. So yeah, big shout out to Asia Wilson, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, representing north of the border, Canada. He's the winner here. And you look at all these nominees, and it just like this is why sports is in a great position that it's in. I know we talked about the ups and downs and the controversies, and you just look at these nominees and what they have done for their respective teams and sports, and it definitely leaves me with a high note of 2025, and has me looking forward to 2026. Jackson Smith and Jimba too, by the way, in Seattle, and Chris McCaffrey are playing for the 1 seed this weekend. This just tells you how great this is. Drake May is a division winner. Show her the time. We can't wait about him enough. Yamamoto threw his arm out to win a world championship. And you talk about Jokic.
Are we just going over the entire list of nominees now?
I have to get this shout out because they're all
it's a hell of a list.
It is a hell of a list.
Get well soon. Jokic, Halliburton, Brunson's an MVP candidate. Kyle Schwarber. I hate you as a Met fan, but it's great to see you back in Philadelphia and knocking home runs out again. Juan Soho, great season. Unfortunately, overshadowed by the Mets collapse.
Demise.
But yeah, this is an amazing list, and this is why it's fun doing these shows, because we think about not just the players, the season they had, the impact they had on their teams, and the sports respectively. That's to make this list so much fun to come up with every year.
Yeah. It was fun putting the list together. When you kind of sit back and look at it before we hand it out to everybody to vote on, you realize, Anthony, you said it perfectly. It's not so much these guys themselves, but the season they produced. And when guys like that, who are at the top of their game, put up seasons like that, it reminds us of one of the things that we love so much about sports. Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh staged one of the greatest MVP races in recent MLB history, and memory rather, and both are Golden Drumstick worthy. Matthew Stafford was a finalist for this award as our voting was done prior to the egg he laid against the Falcons on Monday Night Football in Week 17. And prior to that game, with his 40 touchdown passes against just 5 interceptions, he was deserving. As I said when I voted for him last week, up to that point in the NFL season, no one was playing the most important position in all of sports any better. Though, if we'd held the voting this week, I'm reasonably sure that Patriots quarterback Drake May would be here instead of Stafford, as he did the opposite of laying an egg in their win over the Jets. All that being said, SGA is hands down deserving of this award. As I just noted in the previous segment, he was the NBA scoring leader, regular season MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP, and first team All NBA. Want to talk counting stats? Okay. He shot 51.9% from the floor, 37.5% from beyond the arc on 5.7 attempts per game, and 89.8% from the line on 8.8 attempts per game. He averaged 5 boards, 6 dimes, 1.7 steals, and 1 block. Want to talk next gen stats? Okay. He had a 63.7 true shooting percentage, a 56.9% effective field goal percentage. He was number 2 in player efficiency rating, 30.7. Number 2 in box plus minus, 11.5. Number 2 in value over replacement player, 8.9. Number 3 in usage rate. And surprisingly, he was only 13 in offensive rating, 129.2, but he was number 3 in defensive rating, 107.4. But at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, no player was arguably more critical to his team's overall success than SGA. And I say arguably so as not to piss off the Nikola Jokic fans in our audience. I'll give it to you. Jokic is the best player of his generation, and if he keeps going the way he has so far this season, once he gets back from his recent knee injury, we may be talking about him as the winner of this award next December. But as far as this December goes, when the best player leads the best team to the best record and then to the title, it's kind of a no-brainer for that player to be named our best pro athlete. And for 2025, that player is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I'll get to
And
SGA.
by the way,
Go ahead.
by the way, to piss off the Jokic fans, yes, Taco Bell brought back the quesadilla. Come on, Jokic, get on board, baby. We're waiting on you.
Yeah, it's time, unfortunately, now to get on board with the case for you. Before we get to SGA's final thoughts, I want to give a shout out to Cal Raleigh and what he did this year. Again, he finished second to Aaron Judge because Aaron Judge does Aaron Judge things every single year, and Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani are the Kings unless you knock them off. And so you have to have a special season to even get within 4 first place votes of Aaron Judge. And here are just some of the things Cal Raleigh did this season. And by the way, this was before he signed a 6-year, $105 million. This is after he signed a 6-year, $105 million contract. Wait, that's it? For what this guy did this season? Here's what he did. He became the first Mariner to lead the MLB in homers, spending most of the season pretty much on top. He had the Mariners single season home run record, broke it by 4 over a little guy named Ken Griffey Jr. He is now the top switch hitter home run record player of all time, as he broke Mickey Mantle's record. He had 12 more home runs than the previous record for a catcher, and he catches all the time, by the way. And so hitting 60 home runs for a catcher is insane. Salvador Perez had 48. I mentioned, by the way, it's the 4th 60 home run season in the AL. And now here is the list that he joins: Bonds, McGuire, Sosa, Judge, Maris, and Ruth. And for him, he's going to be only one of the 3 people to get into the Hall of Fame out of that group, most likely. He had the first half record with 38 home runs. And, oh, yeah, he had 5 more home runs in the postseason. So if you count regular season and postseason home runs, he had the most of anybody in history with 65. And, oh, yeah, they got 1 game away from the World Series in the place where Seattle Mariners have never been before. So this was, by record, the greatest Seattle Mariners season of all time, as they finally lifted Houston's lift off of the ALS as they missed the playoffs for the first time in forever. Now on to SGA. When he started his 2018-19 season with the Los Angeles Clippers and was really just kind of a bit piece out there, he was a mid-first round pick, 10.8 points per game, 3.3 assists, 2.8 rebounds. A good guy out there, but he was expendable when big old Paul George was ready to go and joined Kawhi Leonard to form the new Super Troopers over in Los Angeles to be the new Kings of LA. Well, what they did was give away a generational talent, it turns out. His first season, he did pretty well with Chris Paul in Oklahoma City in 2020, 19 points a game, almost 6 rebounds a game. Got injured a bit in 2020, 2021. That was really the beginning of the process. And then 2022 kind of started it. 24 and a half points a game, played 56 games. But then the 3 year run that he's been on 31.4 points per game in 2023, 2022. 30.1 points per game in 2023, 32.7 last year. And oh, yeah, for all of those SGA is a free throw merchant people out there, he actually only went to the line 9.2 times. He went 10.9 times in 2022-23. So he actually does better shooting from the field as he's been 50% in the last 4 years out there. The cover boy of
And feeling cover boy,
2K26,
yes.
for a damn good reason, SGA is continuing a very rich legacy of Kentucky players in the NBA. We didn't think this one could be one of the best, but he very well might be. All right, so let's finish tonight off by accentuating the positive the right way. Here are the things that reminded us that we love sports in 2025. Let's give our due, and I'll start. Hey guys, what did you do when you were 44? Anthony, you and I can't answer because there's only one of us that's actually older than 44 in this chat. So, no need to answer this question here on Zoom. But what the Indianapolis Colts, Philip Rivers, did was come back to play for the Indianapolis Colts as QB1. Rivers, he of 10 children, and as of 2024, was a grandfather. Rivers, who did that stupid, I hate the stupid, signing with the team for 1 day so they can retire like that thing this past July for the Chargers, will probably have to do that again because he was signed to the Indianapolis Colts practice squad on December 10th after quarterback Daniel Jones, who was going through a damn good season on his own, had a season-ending injury, ending Achilles injury of his own. Rivers then was activated from the practice squad 3 days later, and then the next day he would start in Seattle. No big deal. How insane was this? For one, Rivers was brought in to lead the 8-5 Colts at the time for a playoff push coming out of the damn cold. Second, he was a semifinalist and now a finalist for the Hall of Fame this year, so his clock was reset because of that. So 2030, we're going to do this all again and then have another 5-player clock reset. And third, he got to wear his old number, 17, thanks to an NFL ruling, and that was Jones's number for the season. Pretty cool. This is all knucking futz by itself.
Oh, good Lord.
Then realized that he did pretty good in these games. In that Week 15 game against Seattle, which again was literally on days rest, 120 yards, 1 TD, and 1 INT, and in it basically until a game-winning field goal at the end. Rivers, not the issue. Then against San Francisco on Monday night. Oh, by the way, both those teams are playing for the number 1 seed this weekend. No big deal. Great job to have those as the games.
Right?
277 yards, 2 TDs, and 1 INT. That was 8 days later. And then he could actually throw the deep ball. Against the noticeably weaker, almost possibly to be 1 seed in the AFC with a bunch of things to possibly happen, Jacksonville Jaguars, another 147 yards, 1 TD, and 1 INT. He's not going to start this week as they've decided to play Riley Leonard, the rookie, and it looks like this will finally be Philip Rivers' swan song for football, at least we think. Despite the team not rising to number 17's level in those 3 games, Philip did himself a solid and added to a very long legacy in the NFL, which is about as long as his family tree. Congratulations, Philip Rivers. Yes, me and all of the other under 44-year-olds. Sorry, we got to get our asses in gear because we're still way behind in accomplishments if Rivers can do this at 44. All right, let's throw it over to Anthony.
You know what? What has reminded me of why I love sports so much is the bowl season. Fun. Just pure, unadulterated fun. I mean, think about this. We started with the college football playoff and just the sight and sounds at Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, Kyle Field, and Oxford, Mississippi, Eugene, Oregon, and seeing this home field for a college football playoff game. And I still said that's been one. If there was anything that college football has done right with this playoff, it's the first round and these home games, and just seeing the home atmosphere of these respective teams. That some hey look, they may be the fans are brand new to college football. Maybe it's just casual viewers. They don't get to see Kyle Field or Oklahoma Memorial Stadium often, and to see the pageantry before kickoff, and to see and two of these games we saw really good games. We saw Alabama fall behind and find a way to claw back and win that game. We saw Miami and Texas A&M in a defensive slugfest that reminded me of why I hate kickers so much. But besides that, the bowl season has reminded me of why these bowl games, no matter how much you complain, they don't mean nothing, they're irrelevant, are still fun to watch. Did anybody not enjoy Snoop Dogg fielding his own kickoff in the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl in the middle of an interview? Or how about can you imagine the smell of the team bus after watching Louisville eat baked beans by the spoonful after winning the Bush Boca Raton Bowl of Beans? Or how about the Pinstripe Bowl that I watched on Saturday after a frigid snowstorm? And it got me thinking, hey, NFL, wouldn't it be nice to have the Giants have a home game at Yankee Stadium? Maybe for a special occasion, one-on-one game. Considering the Giants did play at Yankee Stadium at one time in their history. Or how about has the rabbi has planned it all, the yummiest of them all. That's right, the Pop Tart Bowl, baby. This is what it's all about. The pageantry. And Notre Dame, shame on you for taking your ball and go home. You missed out on what it means to have a tasty Pop Tart as a trophy. You missed out. Shame on you. No soup for you. But yes, the bowl season as a whole, it's fun to watch. It gives you something to watch during the holiday season when it's not about Hollywood movies and reruns going on. But then you see there are other days going on like the Mayo Bowl that's coming up. How about the Cheese and Citrus Bowl? Yeah, yeah. Who would love to win and get dumped in and jar of Kraft mayonnaise the victor comes to spoils? But I tell you what, about my words, in 2026, the People's Champion Bowl, the Pop Tarts Bowl, will be elevated to the college football playoff. I was sort of GoFundMe to make this happen. It is the popularity. Did we all see? By the way, shame on the protein strawberry Pop Tart for bailing out the last moment.
So
What
I
a what a outrageously chicken coward move has
so
the other two Pop Tarts make the sacrifice that has been worth it. BYU taking it by the handful, eating the Pop Tarts. The victor comes to spoils, baby. So yes, this is why I love sports because it's fun. We forget it lost in all the business and the money and the NRLs and all this other crap. It's about pure, unadulterated fun. So yes, for 2026, I say bon appetit. Nolan, do not give me a lot of crap on this because I know I've been a pain in the ass about the Pop Top Bowl all week, but I'm going to enjoy this one, okay? I earned this. So cheers to you 2026.
and
Of
by the way, I do think I now think the protein strawberry opting out is a direct shot at Notre Dame, but that's just me. That's a possibility of what I'm thinking, but that'll never be proven because they've never said if that was actually true or not. All right, Jay, take us home.
I agree with you on that. That is a direct shot amidship to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Is there anything we love more in sports, besides from a good underdog story, than a comeback? How about a comeback by an Olympic hero we all thought had called it quits? Yeah, that one's up there. Simone Biles gave us a version of that with what she pulled off in Paris last year after all of her trials and tribulations. But what Lindsey Vonn has done already is giving us all goosebumps in anticipation of what she could do in Cortina in February. When we last saw Vaughn, a three-time Olympic medalist and an eight-time world championship medalist, was back in 2019 when she was recovering from a 2018 crash that tore the lateral collateral ligament along with three fractures in her left knee and had her retiring after the 2019 World Cup season, which saw her fall 4 wins short of Sweden's Ingemar Stenmark's record for most World Cup wins with 86. But now, almost 6 years later, after having partial knee replacement surgery, which has finally made her pain-free, putting in endless hours in the gym, endless more on the slopes with the guidance of an old coach and an old friend, a new pair of ski boots, combined with her usual fearlessness and aggression, and once again, Lindsey Vonn is on top of alpine skiing's mountain. After a 2024 season that saw her have 4 top 10 finishes in 13 World Cup races, she won this season's first World Cup downhill in St. Moritz earlier in December, becoming, at 41, the oldest woman to win a World Cup race, beating the field by nearly a second. And she followed that with a second place finish the next day in another downhill race, and fourth in the Super G the day after that, missing the podium by 0.08 seconds. She's the overall World Cup leader in the season's downhill standings, and because she's so far ahead of the other U.S. skiers, she secured a spot on the U.S. Olympic ski team in downhill and will represent the nation at the 2026 Winter Olympics, where a gold medal is not out of the question. She'll retire for good this time after the World Cup season ends in March, but this time she'll go out on her own terms. Comeback stories don't get much better than this, though if she wins at least one more Olympic gold medal, it just might. And stories like this are why I love sports.
Have you actually seen, by the way, the commercial with her and Scarlett Johansson basically?
Yes, I saw it. I saw it on Sunday Night Football. That's awesome.
It is
it's
awesome.
Absolutely awesome. I loved it.
I do think Scarlett needs to just, it was good poking fun at herself, but I feel like Lindsay should have just given her a little more stink eye immediately following it. But that's okay.
if you didn't see it,
anyway.
Agreed. If you didn't see it during Sunday Night Football, go find it online. It's priceless.
By the way, Lindsey Vonn didn't want to just come back from almost a career-threatening injury. She survived a relationship with PK Subban. So that in itself, hey, PK, you're my guy, but it's kind of crazy. If you watch him on TNT, he's a bit nuts.
ESPN, but yes.
Oh, ESPN now, yes.
Yeah. To be fair, she's also had affairs with not affairs, but had a relationship with Tiger Woods, who, by the way, turns 50 today. Going into that year. All right. Enough with talking about celebrities and Timothy Chalamet and all of that stuff and talking about Pop-Tarts. That's a wrap for this year's On the Sports Lines. For all of the people that have contributed to this show in some way, for our former host, Nisa Petrilli, who shows us the true line between motherhood, fun, and sports fanaticism, I am not spending New Year's Eve with you this year because you are going to be crazed about your Miami Hurricanes.
Yes, she is. We've already had that conversation.
For Nolan Toppin, one of our eminent OGs that we can laugh at on our group chats. And Anthony, do not give him another Pop-Tart Bowl reference.
No.
Maybe one, but don't do it.
Nope.
Richard Safaro, who with our podcast time on the Official Review podcast has taught me things that I didn't know about refereeing and sports in general. For Sean Roman, who lives to give us the most lively debate and to annoy Jay Kaplan to eternity.
Indeed.
For Steve Ferguson and Pedro Hazel Jr., my yellow shirt brother in arm, and our OTSL OGs that have helped us keep the legacy of what has been built alive. And for my two co-hosts, Anthony Strait, my excessive texting partner, and Jay Kaplan, my obsessive show partner, both of whose words for sports are numerous, in a good way, though, in a better way, and sometimes more.
Appreciate you, partner.
Oh, absolutely.
For all of those excellent people, I am the man whose old and new acquaintances have said that they should forget me. Happy New Year to me, Stephen Rabinowitz.
Rabbi, can I throw in the Twitter thing?
Give me a moment, because I have to actually finish off the part of it and introduce you like I normally do.
Okay.
To watch this show again, check us out at youtube.com/onthesportslines to watch our shows live, like tonight's. Check us out at facebook.com/onthesportslines. Thank you for me writing this, because immediately Jay almost ruined it. Subscribe to both, and subscribe to another thing of social media called Jay. What's it called again?
At our Twitter handle is at ONTH Sportslines, where you'll find a link to each new show like tonight's, along with tidbits and nuggets from the world of sports that we think are worth your time to check out. This week, as I did last year at this time, I posted a link to Jason Stark's annual Major League Baseball Strange But True year-end column on the in the Athletic. It's full with a whole lot of things that remind us why we're romantic about baseball.
All right. Good night from On the Sports Lines. We'll see you to start 2026. Have a good evening.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.